I need it. Let's go. The guy.
Welcome to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian. And well, it's a big news day, and it appears, based on the preliminary reports, that the United States is going to strike Iran. Now, I don't know the extent of this military operation. I don't know if it's going to be a hit it and quit it type situation or if it's going to go beyond that. This is all developing right now as I'm live on air. So it's kind of impossible to tell you exactly what is about to transpire, but I'm going to do the best that I can. So with that in mind, let's get to what we know for sure.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset, including you will be very upset. But that's just gotten to me some information that the killing has stopped, that the executions have stopped. They're not going to have an execution.
The statement you just heard from President Donald Trump took place after the US government advised personnel at the US military base in Qatar to evacuate. And now this is the largest military base in the Middle East. It has about 10,000 US personnel there. And after that announcement was made, you hear this statement from Donald Trump, and some people thought, well, maybe we're not going to strike Iran. Maybe the escalating tensions have finally calmed down. But that does not appear to be the case. And this isn't the first time President Trump would be bluffing. As we all know, he made it seem as though he was engaging in nuclear negotiations with Iran before striking its nuclear sites. And right now, as this story develops, it's developing as I'm on air at this moment. You have Douglas McGregor writing in. He used to be Trump's foreign policy advisor. Unfortunately, he no longer is, but he has alerted everyone to the fact that 6 US tankers have taken off from that US military base from Qatar toward Iran. You also have the airspace over Iran completely cleared. Apparently, there was a United Airlines flight that was supposed to go from Newark to Israel. And as it began taking off, it actually turned back, and passengers were informed that the flight was entirely canceled. That's according to I-24 News, by the way, which is an Israeli outlet. So at this very moment, it is not 100% sure, so I want to be very clear with everybody. But from the signs that I'm seeing, it does appear that the United States intends to strike Iran. Now, the execution that Trump was likely referring to was that of a 26-year-old by the name of Irfan Soltani, who was allegedly going to be executed in Iran today for his part in the demonstrations. However, later news came out that Iran was going to delay or hold off on that execution. But now I'm wondering if the United States does aim to strike Iran, what happens to that 26-year-old? I have no idea. And we're in the fog of war, okay? We're getting conflicting reports in regard to the number of people who have been killed in Iran. I have no doubt that the number at this point is in the thousands, but for those who are claiming that 20,000, I was on a Piers Morgan panel today, a woman claimed there were 70 to 80,000 people who have been killed in 3 days. I'm gonna need some actual evidence for that before I regurgitate it on this show. But there's no question that the Iranian regime has treated the protesters with brutality. There are some reports that there are different factions at war with one another within Iran. We know that some security forces have also been killed. We don't know exact numbers though, and I don't want to make the mistake of simply regurgitating something that might be propaganda. Here's what we do know though. The New York Times earlier today was already asking about military assets that the Trump administration plans to use against Iran. And here's what they know, here's what they found. If Trump orders military strikes against Iran, his options are somewhat limited. Last fall, the Pentagon sent the carrier Gerald R. Ford and other escort warships from the Eastern Mediterranean to the Caribbean. So remember, our hostilities with Venezuela, really a one-way hostility toward Venezuela, has led to Trump sending quite a few of our military assets to the Caribbean. So that's what they're referring to here. Even so, they write, the Navy has 3 missile firing destroyers in the Middle East region now, including the Roosevelt, which in recent days has steamed into the Red Sea, military officials said on Wednesday. The Navy also has at least 1 missile firing submarine in the region, Pentagon officials said. And if you are under the assumption that President Donald Trump is very concerned about the protesters themselves, even though he aided and abetted the mass slaughter of innocents, mostly women and children in Gaza, I just don't know how you convince yourself of that. So possible targets, writes the New York Times, for a strike include Iran's nuclear program, going beyond the US airstrikes that battered it in June and ballistic missile sites, US officials have said. So they're going after Iran's military capabilities, which have been a priority for Israel. I don't know how that helps the protesters, but okay, that's what we're dealing with. Anyway, the Times reports that any attack is at least several days away. Don't worry, it's several days away. But again, based on the movements that we've been seeing just in the last hour, it does appear that a strike is likely. And again, I don't know the extent of these military operations that are likely to be carried out very soon. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the other reports that came out prior to the latest developments, because I think it's kind of important to understand some of what's been going on the ground in Iran. So Tamir Morag, who is an Israeli journalist, he actually works for Channel 14 in Israel, that happens to be a Likud-linked outlet, had posted this, which was really fascinating, because you got to keep in mind, the Iranian people are not armed, right? So they don't really have any weapons to protect themselves or to fight back against the regime. But there have been around 133, there could be more, security forces who have been killed. So the real question is how? How did they kill them? And turns out this reporter might give us some answers, Israeli reporter. He writes that, we reported tonight on Channel 14, foreign actors are arming the protesters in Iran with live firearms, which is the reason for the hundreds of regime personnel killed. Everyone is free to guess who is behind it, kind of being cheeky there. Then there's Tamir Heyman, who is the former head of the Israeli military intelligence, literally admitting that there is a very significant influence operation by the United States in Iran. And while speaking to an Israeli paper known as Ma'ariv, Heyman said the following: if the question is there zero operation right now? The answer is no, because there is already an operation. There is currently a very significant influence operation by the US, referring to the current unrest happening in Iran. By the way, this is a good time to pause and just say, the protesters who are out there, like, I don't want anyone to think that, oh, this whole protest is totally manufactured and the people of Iran are super happy with the regime. That is not the case, and that is not what I would ever say on this show, okay? That's just not rooted in reality or fact. Organic protests have occurred. I feel, based on evidence that I'm sharing with you, that those organic protests in Iran against the regime, and I've got no love for the regime, were co-opted by foreign actors. And I am worried about that because the people of Iran deserve to decide who leads them, period. They don't deserve a foreign actor to come in and install a monarch. They don't deserve a foreign actor to come in and meddle with their business at all. Now, I understand that some Iranians want the US to get involved because of the fact that it's going to take more than these protests and demonstrations to overthrow the regime. Although the Ayatollah was able to overthrow the Shah without US involvement. So anyway, but let's get to some more details here. Here's more of what Tamir Heyman, again, the former head of Israeli military intelligence, had to say. Simply put, an influence effort is an effort that operates primarily in the cyber realm and in the realm of local disruption and subversion, and there are some. Then he acknowledged that US sanctions were the cause, this is very important, were the cause of the economic issues that in Iran that sparked the initial protests, which are apparently being exploited by American and Israeli intelligence, saying there is the attempt, as we heard tonight from Trump, that this is a path of negotiation with the Americans, that this is really the only thing that can save the Iranian economy, the lifting of sanctions. So the protest did begin, and this is how it was initially reported. It began with anger toward the regime due to economic frustration. That economic frustration was manufactured in main part due to the US implementing sanctions against Iran. So let's also remember that former Secretary of State and former CIA Director Mike Pompeo said Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. And the Israeli Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu said, and I'm quoting, "When we attacked in Iran during Rising Lion, we were on its soil and knew how to lay the groundwork for a strike. I can assure you that we have some of our people operating there right now." So while I want nothing more than for the Iranian people to be free, I am worried about where their government is going to end up, what their leadership will turn out to be, basically. Because one thing that I do know for sure is they don't want foreign interference in regard to what their government becomes. But nonetheless, doesn't really matter what anyone really cares about or what anybody desires. Really, the countries with the military might are going to have their way. And I think that's going to play out here. So days ago, Amir Avivi, who is the founder of the IDF and retired IDF Brigadier General, kind of gave the game away. I mean, it's kind of amazing how overt they are when it comes to these issues, because the Jerusalem Post had a conference about 6 days ago, and I thought that his statements were pretty telling. Let's take a look.
Another fight with Iran and Hezbollah and possibly the Houthis is imminent. And today I can say something we couldn't have said a month ago. This regime is going down. There will be no Iranian regime. And this is going to change entirely the future of Israel.
Happen? Can you describe us? It will be an American attack. It will be an Israeli-American attack.
So I think it's going to be an American-led attack with the assistance of Israel. And Israel prepared for a preemptive attack. But as Israel was preparing for a preemptive attack that might have happened even today, the demonstration started, and a clear message for President Trump: we are not going to let you shoot these demonstrators. We are going to defend them. And indeed, I think that we'll see in the very near future a massive American attack with the help of Israel and with the demonstrators. I think this regime stands no chance, and they will fall. And I can tell you, as I said, the bigger the win will be, the greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after.
So the individual that Israel hopes to install in place of the Iranian regime is the former Shah's son, the Shah that was ousted, of course, during the Islamic Revolution. His son's name is Reza Pahlavi. And Pahlavi was actually recently in Israel and has made it abundantly clear that he intends to be Iran's transitional leader, meaning that the West is going to install him, and allegedly he's going to help transition the country to a democratic process, which I don't trust personally. Typically, when someone finds themselves in an extreme position of power, it is unlikely that they will just willy-nilly give it up. But I'm hoping to be proven wrong. I'm hoping to be proven wrong about all of my predictions on this. And most importantly, the only people who actually matter, not the United States. I mean, obviously I care about the United States for my own purposes, but in the case and in the context of Iran, the only people who matter are the people of Iran. Now, the Washington Post, which put out a piece today about the warring factions, within these demonstrations, talked a little bit about the lack of popularity for Reza Pahlavi. So about 1/3 of Iranians would like him to be the transitional leader. 1/3 absolutely do not want him, and then the rest are uncertain. So we'll see how this all plays out. But one thing that I know for sure is anyone who objects to US involvement in Iran gets bullied, coerced, and threatened. And I think a perfect example of that is how Cenk was treated when he was on Piers Morgan's show just yesterday. Let's take a quick look at that.
These protests are legitimate and have nearly toppled the regime. That's wonderful. I don't like this regime. Let them keep going. But the minute you bomb them, first of all, they're gonna lose all credibility on the ground, the protesters are. The regime is going to love that action. They're gonna use that to rally the Iranian people to their side. It is going to be deeply counterproductive.
We have a leader, we have His Royal Highness, King Reza Pahlavi, who has he's heeded the call of the Iranian people. He is going to be stepping in as a transitional leader.
She keeps pretending to speak for the Persian people. There's been no vote. She doesn't represent any of them. So some do like the Shah. I don't dispute that. I think that they're very, very mistaken in that. There's some earnest people who believe that. And then there's people who work for Israel who say, yeah, he's a perfect puppet for Israel and he should be. And then Chuck says, oh, well, the UAE also wants him gone and Turkey wants Iran gone. Why do I care about those countries?
You're
I don't care about those countries. I care about us. Can I ask Rob one last question? Rob, you're military. You're a Navy SEAL Team 6.
No one even in Iran knows
how many military? Hold on. Let me ask Rob a question. Hey, is Israeli puppet? Hold on a second. Can I ask Rob a question?
Don't talk over each other.
Israeli puppet.
Don't talk over each other, please.
Hey, Rob.
Don't worry.
You might have missed that after she started, I guess, threatening him in Farsi. She's then switched back up to English and said, when the regime is done, then we're going to come after you guys, don't worry. Seems like there's a certain kind of person that's rooting for the installation of a monarch that, tend to really love messing around with specific threats like that. It's pathetic. Anyway, my heart is with the Iranian people. They deserve a government that represents them. They deserve a government that they choose, and they deserve freedom. And once we get some clarity on just how many people have been killed, obviously I'm gonna share those numbers with you. There's just too much fog and too much contradiction in the way these stories are being reported right now. There's over 2,000 deaths from the reports that I trust a little more, but it's very likely that there could be more people who have been killed as a result of these demonstrations and the regime's response to them. Or on top of that, there have been some rioters who have carried out acts of violence as well. So security forces have been killed. But once we have more clarity on that, I'll share those numbers with you. It's just a terrible situation on the ground. And as we all know, Iran shut down its internet. So it's difficult to get confirmed actual reporting from the ground. So that's where we are right now. I'm sure this story will further develop throughout the show today, and I'll try to stay updated and give you guys information as I get it. For now, though, I want to take a quick break and we'll come back with other news. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to our social break. Little Mac McG says, well, for all the scary / bad news, at least I think you did amazing on CNN last night. Anna, you truly shut that fool sitting next to you down. Loved it. I wish I could be more celebratory today, but I'm really scared about what's to come. So we'll see. Just Jim has a critical comment. TYT is always coming down on Congress for taking legal bribes, and rightfully so. But where is the same outrage when Trump today sold $500 million in Venezuelan oil and hid the money in Qatar? Well, Just Jim, I just found out about it. So thank you for informing me. I assure you that there is no weird conspiracy going on where we're providing cover for Qatar, which is a US ally, by the way, like an actual US ally. But I'll move on. Let's go to Cenk's left tricep. By the way, this is just a general comment for everybody, okay? We're all running like 100 miles per hour. And when I say we, I mean me and my team. We're doing our best. We're not going to be informed of every single little thing that you're informed of. So I just ask that you guys let us know about something that we might not be informed about instead of assuming malice, okay? Because I assure you there's no malice in my heart and there's no weird like fealty to Qatar. I hate money in politics. I hate how this government is looting the country. And I would love to report on things like that. I just didn't know about it. All right, Cenk's left tricep of fury. How's that the anti-war president title working for you, Donnie? By the way, guys, I was so wrong. I knew Trump was gonna be bad. I didn't like, just because, when I hear the word fascist, I think of, fascism is a specific ideology. So when Cenk and I got into that debate about whether or not Trump is fascist leading up to the election, there wasn't evidence to suggest that he has or believes in a fascist ideology. But what's being carried out right now on the streets of Minnesota, watching these videos of pregnant women, like there's a video, we're gonna get to it later in the show today. Pregnant woman gets dragged out of her car. She wasn't even part of any of the anti-ICE demonstrations. She was just trying to get by. She was driving to an appointment or something. I've seen now multiple videos of innocent people who are they're not obstructing, they're not getting involved. They're doing nothing other than standing kind of like away off to the side and filming ICE as they're, raining terror on people. And the ICE agents walk up to them and literally knock them to the ground. American citizens. I'm sorry, I feel guilt every single day that I didn't see this coming. I'm such an idiot. Anyway, let's get back to the show. You should switch to Mobile Noble. It's cheaper. They'll pay you back for unused data. It's one of our sponsors. So by switching to them, you also help support us. And if you want to learn more about it, just go to tyt.com/switch. Mobile Noble, that's tyt.com/switch. All right, let's get back to the news. I want to talk a little bit about this moment featuring former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying some of the most disgusting garbage you could imagine. But I mean, it's Pompeo. I guess we shouldn't put it past him.
We need to make sure that the story is told properly so that when the history books write this, they don't write about the victims of Gaza, right? They can't, the history, and
There you have former Secretary of State and former CIA Director Mike Pompeo at a specific Israeli event calling out the notion that history books would ever entertain the idea of sharing details about the people who have been slaughtered in Gaza. God forbid that happens. They're war crimes. We can't teach future generations about any of that. Now, if you're wondering, okay, well, does Mike Pompeo think there were any victims in the last two years? He does, actually. Let's take a look.
I should be a little more precise. There were victims in Gaza, right? It's true. There are civilian casualties in every war that's ever been fought. But the victims were the people of the nation state of Israel. The aggressor was the Iranian regime in the proxy of Hamas, and we need to make sure that the history books reflect that, and that requires each of us every day to talk about it in real time with our children, with our grandchildren, about it in a way that is serious and thoughtful and complete.
Oh, I'll be talking about it in a way that's serious and thoughtful and complete. It's just not the type of propaganda and revisionist history that Mike Pompeo is hoping for. Now, he made these rather disgusting statements while speaking to IDF combat veteran Benjamin Anthony, who also happens to be the CEO and founder of the Miriam Institute, which held the event that you see Pompeo speaking at. And yeah, the real victims are the Israelis here. I mean, they were certainly the victims on October 7th. There's no question about that. But promptly following October 7th, I would venture to say that the real victims were all the innocent people who were slaughtered in Gaza, of course, the West Bank, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. I mean, they even bombed Tunisia at one point. Who knows how many people died there as a result of that? But I want to highlight some specific stories for you. Oh, would you look at that? Nice B-roll there. Those people that you see in the imagery right beside me, not victims, according to Mike Pompeo. A grotesque, disgusting excuse for a human being. But anyway, let's talk about some of the people that Pompeo does not consider to be victims, like the 11-year-old by the name of Amna Ashraf al-Mufti, I should say, who apparently wasn't a victim when Israeli thugs carried out a drone strike and killed her as she was alone and fetching water for her family. If you don't remember that story, there was video of the incident. We're not going to show you the video. It's absolutely brutal. But you'll see some still frames of it. Euromed Monitor actually confirmed the video as proof of the Israeli military deliberately killing children in Gaza. Euromed Monitor's field team, they write, verified a video showing the Israeli army targeting a Palestinian girl as she tried to collect water in the courtyard of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. This crime is further damning evidence of Israel's deliberate killing of Palestinian children as part of a genocide. But don't worry, Mike Pompeo doesn't see them as victims, so they must not be victims. The Israelis are the victims. The Israelis had already wiped out much of her family prior to carrying out this drone strike. So the Israeli army killed al-Mufti's mother and her 8-year-old brother on May 17th of 2025 as they tried to flee the area. They were struck by direct shelling while placing their belongings in the vehicle meant to evacuate them, in yet another crime reflecting the deliberate targeting of civilians, even during displacement. And again, according to Mike Pompeo, those people were not victims. No, the perpetual victims are always the Israelis. The IDF seemed to be having a fun time slaughtering innocent people, defenseless people, unarmed people. And so less than 2 hours later, Mohammed Abu Hajjaj was targeted in the same way while fetching water from the same hospital courtyard. Not a victim, though. So the death toll in Gaza has now reached 71,439. On top of that, you have over 171,000 people who have been maimed and wounded and injured. And these numbers, of course, do not include the bodies that still remain trapped under all that rubble that you see in the video on this screen right now. This is Gaza. That is what you're looking at. But the people who lived in those homes, those structures, the people who relied on those hospitals to get better, to get treatment, those people, not victims. Those people are not victims at all. Living in absolute hell right now in the middle of winter, no shelter, dying of the cold, children dying of cold at this point. So 449 Palestinians, by the way, have been killed since the fake ceasefire was signed in October of last year. Now, Mike Huckabee, who has made a point to publicly prioritize Israel above all else, and I'm not even exaggerating about that, spoke to Piers Morgan and claimed that anyone in Trump's base, anyone who considers themselves MAGA, who happens to be against regime change war in Iran on behalf of Israel, of course, just isn't the real deal, isn't American enough for him.
I think what we say is, look, America first, absolutely. But that doesn't mean America only. We're not isolationists. We live in a real world. President Trump has not engaged us, got us into long-lasting wars that last for 15 or 20 years. My gosh, it was less than an hour that the B-2 bombers went over Iran, bombed the ever-loving daylights out of Fordow and the nuclear sites. There were people who think they're MAGA, they're not, they're posers. And they said, Donald Trump will get us into a 20-year war. 20,000 Americans will be killed, we'll have boots on the ground. They look really stupid right now.
Now, there you have Mike Huckabee talking about how, the Trump administration hit it and quit it. They went in, they bombed the nuclear sites, and they were done. So all those dumb dissidents and anti-war types who thought we were going to get dragged into a war with Iran, they're so silly. Meanwhile, today, the US is moving military assets toward Iran. The Iran airspace has been cleared, and it's pretty clear to me that the US is planning to do something. Now, is it just going to be more airstrikes? Possibly. But in order to take a regime out, you very likely do need boots on the ground. And so the real question is, how far is the United States willing to go to ensure regime change in Iran? Which overwhelmingly, I mean, it could benefit the Iranian people if, the outcome of that toppling of the Iranian regime leads to them being able to make decisions about who governs them. But that's not what this is really about. And so we'll see how it plays out. But I just want you guys to remember, according to the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, all of those children that you saw slaughtered over the last 2 years, not victims. Real victims, the poor people in Israel. Well, specifically the people that he answers to. I mean, you look at Netanyahu, you see that guy as a victim. I see him as an opportunist who hasn't seen an uprising or unrest that he didn't want to take full advantage of and exploit, to the detriment of the very people who are engaging in the uprising in the first place. Anyway, all right, let's move on to ICE. Let's talk a little bit about how bad things are here domestically, especially when it comes to our system of justice and, avoiding living in a police state.
Even if the wife had said, you should flee, that is not a reason. It is not lawful. It is not in their conduct books to use force simply because a person is fleeing an encounter.
Correct. She wasn't the one who
we're coming back to the situation.
That did not happen. The officer was in front of the car. Flee with the guy in front of the car is different than saying, I'm fleeing down the street.
We're talking about why they're investigating the wife. That's what we're talking about.
Because she encouraged someone to flee.
We're talking about why they're investigating the wife.
But that's the only reason why.
But the guy who pulled the trigger not being investigated.
The guy who pulled the trigger not being investigated, that's the real issue here. And unfortunately, 6 prosecutors in the state of Minnesota have now resigned over the Justice Department's demand, their push to investigate the widow of Renee Good, who was, by the way, fatally shot. That's the big story out of Minnesota that we've been talking about, shot by an ICE agent just last week. So the ICE agent who pulled the trigger and shot Good in the face 3 times, no investigation there. In fact, immediately after that happened, you have various White House officials come out, refer to the woman who was shot in the face 3 times as a domestic terrorist. And now there's apparently going to be an investigation into her wife, which, honestly, I don't have that much of a problem with that, especially since I think her wife's involvement there was not helpful. I'll just put it generously. I'll put it that way, was not helpful. But you know what the real injustice is? That there's no investigation at all into the ICE agent to see whether or not he followed proper protocols, whether or not he did something wrong. I mean, can we at least get an investigation? No, according to the White House, no investigation on that. So you saw me on that CNN panel. We'll get back to that later. But for now, let me give you some more details, because according to a shocking report from the New York Times, the Department of Justice isn't only demanding a criminal probe into Becca Good, Renee Good's wife. I'm sorry, into Becca Good, Renee Good's late wife. They're also reluctant to investigate the ICE officer who shot and killed Renee. So after Good was shot, Harmeet Dillon, head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, told her staff that she would not consider opening an investigation into whether the agent had violated federal law, according to 3 current and former department officials. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche also said something similar in a statement. There is currently no basis for a criminal civil rights investigation into the ICE agent. Instead, the Justice Department launched an investigation to examine ties between Good and her wife, Becca, and several groups that have been monitoring and protesting the conduct of immigration agents in recent weeks. Okay, so you're gonna investigate ICE protesters, anti-ICE protesters? That's the priority? And I wanna be clear, there's a distinction here. There are those who will, try to obstruct ICE and might actually do something that's considered illegal. And in that case, I don't know, you arrest them, right? It's not that difficult. But to launch investigations into protesters, broadly speaking, pretty anti-American, isn't it? Among the federal prosecutors to resign is Joseph Thompson, who was second in command at the US Attorney's Office and was also the lead prosecutor on the DOJ investigation into social services fraud in Minnesota, which I thought the Trump administration was really concerned about. Seemed like that was just the cover story for what they really wanted to do. But people familiar with his decision to quit said that he actually did object to the DOJ pressing for an investigation into Becca Good. And he also objected to the DOJ's refusal to include state officials in the investigation of the shooting itself. Ironically, Thompson's resignation, and this is the part that's just so frustrating. I get wanting to resign because you disagree with what the administration is doing. I mean, I probably would do the same thing. But it's also at the same time a bit counterproductive, right? Because Thompson's resignation is going to hurt efforts to root out fraud in Minnesota. Obviously, this is a person who has a conscience, and I would like to have more people with a conscience in our government, serving in various branches of our government. And losing people like that is not a good thing. And Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara called out the Trump administration on this, saying that when you lose the leader responsible for making the fraud cases, it tells you this isn't really about prosecuting fraud. Yeah, to me, that's pretty clear at this point. So among the other prosecutors who have now resigned, because remember, 6 of them have resigned. You have Thomas Calhoun Lopez, the chief of the Violent and Major Crimes Unit. Harry Jacobs, Thompson's deputy overseeing the fraud investigation. And you also have Melinda Williams, another senior career prosecutor. They have now resigned. So let's get to the second half of this story, because not only has there been a revolt at the US Attorney's Office in Minnesota, there are also growing tensions on the ground as protesters in the wake of Good's killing clash with the thousands of ICE agents that have been deployed in the area, and there are thousands. So unfortunately, you will see terrible video of ICE agents acting with impunity because they know, based on the White House's response following the fatal shooting of Good, that they can act with impunity, that Trump will come out, or a representative or spokesperson from DHS will come out and refer to the person that was gunned down by a militarized federal agent as a domestic terrorist before knowing a single thing about her or him. So the immigration crackdown operation has now grown to 2,000 federal agents. And yesterday, the Trump administration announced that they are planning to deploy an additional 100 CBP officers. Local leaders and immigrant rights groups have decried the agents' conduct, saying that they have been stopping people based only on looks and accents. Often, these stops have led to violent arrests of both immigrants and American citizens, and that's according to local officials and observers who have recorded mayhem using cell phones. So I want to share some of that evidence with you, including one of the videos which shows federal agents dragging a woman out of her car just a couple of blocks from where Renee Good was shot. You guys feel good and free? Don't feel like you're living in a third world police state? Here was another case of a woman in Minneapolis who was actually protesting, was protesting ICE operations. So in the video we just showed you, it was a woman who was just driving. Anyway, the next one, you actually do have a protester. Let's take a look at that.
Patty O'Keefe says she and a friend were following ICE agents on Sunday. When they were stopped, their car pepper sprayed and their windows smashed before being taken to a federal detention center.
3 ICE agents that were in the car with me immediately started taunting me. The driver of the car said, you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian is dead.
O'Keefe says she was held for 8 hours before being released without charges.
Released without charges because she didn't commit a crime. So I just want to understand, and I'm asking a serious question. If there are any conservatives watching the show right now, I genuinely want to know, and I'm asking politely. I know that this isn't happening in your part of town. It's very unlikely happening in your part of the town. Usually these ICE agents are deployed in blue cities, blue states. I get it. But would you enjoy this in your city or your town? Would you be okay with ICE agents knocking door to door, asking whether or not the people living in the home are American citizens? Would you be okay knowing your child, for instance, is at Target working and gets harassed by an ICE agent demanding answers when you know your kid is an American citizen, doesn't have to answer a damn thing, number one, doesn't need to be harassed while at work at a Target parking lot, gets roughed up by the ICE agents, and then later bloodied and dropped off at a Walmart? Would you be okay with that? Because let me just say something. Let's say we live in a weird topsy-turvy world where we have President Joe Biden doing what Trump is doing now, but specifically deploying militarized federal agents in red parts of this country, Republican parts of this country. I'd be horrified because I don't want to live in a police state and I don't want my fellow Americans to be brutalized like this. And I just don't really understand how the small government Republicans who are always purporting to be terrified of government tyranny are like pleasuring themselves to this stuff based on what I'm seeing online. Partisan brain rot has destroyed this country to a point where we have so effectively dehumanized each other, so effectively. All you have to do is identify as a Democrat and you'll have a significant portion of Republican voters dehumanizing you, and vice versa. By the way, vice versa. And it's wrong, and the country is not going to survive under that type of atmosphere and that type of culture. So, at a different ICE protest in Santa Ana, and we can't show you guys this video. Number one, it's too gruesome. Number two, it's copyrighted. There was a protester bleeding from the head, it appears, after being hit with a rubber bullet. He was then dragged by a DHS officer into a federal building. Now, this individual is a 21-year-old. Federal agents have also repeatedly used flashbangs and pepper spray against protesters. During my CNN panel, we actually debated those protests and the actions of ICE. And I pointed out the fact that, under a different president who actually deported far more people, we didn't see this type of chaos on the streets. Let's take a look.
And there's no one out there celebrating what happened except for maybe the fringes of fringe on X. People generally accept that this was a tough call. I think a lot of people are on the side.
DHS came out immediately and called her a domestic terrorist.
No, I'm sorry, no, that was a response. That was a response.
About normalizing militarized federal agents roaming the streets under the false pretense of mass deportations. I'm sorry, but the deporter-in-chief, Barack Obama, didn't have militarized ICE agents roaming the streets in order to do the proper operations. Why? What are we doing right now?
And I honestly can't handle the polite discussions about this. I can't. Like, every administration, our quality of life and our rights are degraded. And it's because everything just gets normalized. And I don't want this normalized. I believe in protecting our borders. Sorry to the open borders people. I think you're wrong. I think it's important to enforce our immigration laws. However, I am not in favor of the federal government doing what it's doing right now. I am not okay with seeing militarized federal agents roaming the streets. Now, I want to move on to the public and how they're feeling about this, okay? Because the majority of the public agrees with me that ICE's brutal conduct is unnecessary. I'm not being crazy. I don't have TDS. I believe in American values, and what we're seeing on our streets is against American values. And turns out, this Quinnipiac poll finds the majority of Americans agree with me. 57% of Americans disapprove of the way ICE is enforcing immigration laws. 57%, only 40% approve. And that 40%, I assure you, are on the right. But if the tables were turned, the numbers and the demographics would flip. Because if you are afflicted by partisan brain rot, you think everything is okay when your side does it. Think for yourself, okay? Exit the cult. It's destroying the country. Ken Klippenstein writes in his new scoop, according to documents leaked to me, not only is the department seeking volunteers for the apparently unpopular mission, it is urging its agents to maintain a low profile and comply with the use of force policies. Please just comply with the law, please. But if you don't worry. We're not going to punish you. We'll just smear the person who's either maimed or killed. And they're looking for volunteers. So apparently in part due to opposition within the ranks, according to Border Patrol agents and other Homeland Security workers who have reached out to me. Please begin canvassing your personnel for volunteers. A memo sent by the Border Patrol's acting assistant chief, Joshua Andrew, post on Friday. Things are bad. And anyone who thinks what we're experiencing is normal is wrong. And if we let this kind of behavior stand, if we allow this growth of federal power to interject themselves in our lives like this, like I don't know where this ends. But freedom isn't free. You have to fight for it. And freedom isn't a mainstay. It can very easily be taken away. And right now, I know there's a lot going on in the news, but what we're seeing on our streets is not normal. People shouldn't be brutalized like this. Anyway, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back to our social break. Just Jim writes in again and says, Anna, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate you. I know I was like very salty in responding to you. Emotions are high today. And yeah, it's not beyond me to admit when I'm emotional. The news today is really getting to me. All right, Ray of Sunshine says, remember the days when the right would claim all the world would be at peace with Trump simply being in the White House because everyone else would be too scared to cause any issues since Trump was so strong. Well, I mean, we're Americans and Americans fight for what they believe is right. So the idea that you're going to elect someone who's going to be able to do whatever he wants and it's, everyone's going to be too afraid to stand up and fight back. We don't work that way. Americans have a spirit that I'm proud of. Now, that doesn't mean that I want anyone to put themselves in the line of danger as they're engaging in civil disobedience. Please don't engage in violence and protect yourself. Be careful. You have to remember, like, protest is protected and you should protest if you feel the need to, if you're feeling passionate about it. But you also have to be smart because these guys are, literally, I've seen videos, multiple videos of people who are not at all obstructing, not at all interfering with ICE operations. They're just like standing to the side and filming it. And an ICE agent just like walks up and smacks them to the ground and takes their phone. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. All right, Eclectic Miscellaneous says, it's Anna Solo, an hour of Anna amazing us with her strong takes on important issues delivered freely and unencumbered. So pretty much like her debate with Pearl Went. That's funny. That wasn't even like a great debate performance by me. And it sucked because like I like debating, but it's kind of hard to debate with someone who's unable to debate back. Anyway, let's go to our YouTube members. We've got, thank you to With It Girl or With It Gal who gifted 5 TYT memberships. M33324 says, Anna with the flawless makeup again. I appreciate it. Yvonne Butterfly Girl says, 3 Palestine Action prisoners have announced the end of their hunger strike after the government decided not to award a £2 billion contract to the Israeli arms company subsidiary Elbit Systems UK. Oh, inject that in my veins. I need that good news. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. All right, I got to read some of these super chats. We've got Stephen Belgard who says, just signed up for Mobile, super easy process. Liking it so far. Thanks, Cenk. Anti-Citizen 666 says, I hope Anna has a good lawyer on speed dial. I just watched her murder just pearly things on stage. That's hilarious. All right, we got to get back to the show. I'll see you guys there.
There was a point where I did want to throw hands, but I'm bigger than you.
I know you are, but what am I?
Welcome back, everyone. Cenk Uygur will be joining us for the second hour. But before we get to that, I wanted to share at least one more story with you. Let's talk a little bit about Trump's phony economic proposals. And I'll explain what I mean by phony in just a moment.
This is what Trump does. He will just spurt out all sorts of populist economic policy proposals and then do nothing. He wants the kudos without actually doing the work. And then they'll play the good cop, bad cop. Trump wants to do it, but oh no, I can't do it because of the Republicans who are funded by the financial services industry.
You're trying to have it both ways. On the one hand, he does something, you say it's wrong. He doesn't do anything, you say it's wrong. You're creating an environment in which he can't do anything that's not going to upset you.
Talk
I think that's the plan.
is cheap.
Exactly.
I'm sick of politicians who do nothing for us, expecting credit from the American people for simply proposing something without real intention in getting it done.
I think she's the wrong one to pick this fight with because
I'm not picking a fight with Anna. I'm simply saying.
I absolutely would give Trump credit if he followed through on some of the policies he claims to want to accomplish. And one of those policies happens to be capping credit card interest rates to 10%. By the way, for 1 year, that was his proposal, just for 1 year, which isn't, it's not a solution to the very real problem we have with the loan sharks that have run amok in this country. Now, look, I think 10% is plenty to charge someone in interest. And in a bit, I'll get to the details on how much credit card companies on average are charging in interest rates. But before we get to that, let me give you some more details about the Trump proposal. So Trump didn't just recently propose capping credit card interest rates. He actually ran on it. It was part of his campaign. But like many of his other economic populist campaign promises, the policy just kind of fell by the wayside until all of a sudden he brought it up again. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that last week, Senator Bernie Sanders called Trump out for not fulfilling this one specific campaign promise. He wrote, Trump promised to cap credit card interest rates at 10% and stop Wall Street from getting away with murder. Instead, he deregulated big banks charging up to 30% interest on credit cards. The result, last year, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon made $770 million. Unacceptable. Like, how much money do you need? Really, how much money do you need? How many lives are you willing to ruin just so you can make another $770 million? Jamie Dimon has more money than he could possibly spend before he croaks. Anyway, that same day, Trump actually wrote on Truth Social, we will no longer let the American public be ripped off by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20% to 30% and even more, which festered unimpeded during the sleepy Joe Biden administration. Affordability. Okay. And then he says, effective January 20th of this year, I am calling for a 1-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. Okay, number one, why 1 year? Like, is usury bad only for 1 year and then after that the badness expires? Like, what are we talking about? Like, what is this? But okay, whatever, I'll take it. It's something. It's at least something, especially as we're dealing with record consumer debt in this country. But you can't just pass this type of order through an executive order. You would need to pass a bill, legislation. You'd need Congress for that. And he knows that. He knows that. He's not stupid. So what does Congress think about this? Well, this has led to a debate. Is Trump setting an interest rate cap to please his base? Or is he doing this to cozy up to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren? And I think you know where I stand on it, but if you don't, here's what I had to say about it on CNN last night.
He wants cookies from the people who have turned on him because he did not fulfill his campaign promises and has led to absolute chaos on our streets instead.
Yeah, but he's not interested in placating Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
No, he's interested in placating his own base, which is turned on him.
He does need 60 votes in the Senate for a lot of the financial bills that are coming down the pike. So I think the really out-of-the-box thing is to go and ally himself with
get a handful of Republicans.
Right? Well, yeah, but I'm saying to go outside of the base and take the populist wing of the Democratic Party, which is also the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, and maybe make some concessions there. That could be what he's doing because of just the
he's not doing that. Come on,
he's definitely aware of the.
I really need people to stop insulting my intelligence. Like, stop making things up. He does not give a damn about pleasing Democratic voters. Are you kidding me right now? I mean, as he's engaging in unpopular foreign entanglements that his base is furious about, yeah, he's trying to find a way to get back into their good graces by pretending like he wants to accomplish some economic populist policies. But again, you would need to do that through Congress. And I think we have a sense of what the Republicans in Congress think. Let's start off with House Speaker Mike Johnson.
I talked with him about it briefly yesterday, and he is the president is the ideas guy, and what he's doggedly determined to do and laser focused upon doing is the same thing that we are, and that is reducing the cost of living, bringing down prices for the American people, and he's looking at every idea under the sun to do that. You would need legislation to do something like that, and we'd have a lot of work to build consensus around it. But you got to be very careful if you go forward in that. In our zeal to bring down costs, you don't want to have negative secondary effects of that. So, for example, one of the things that the president probably had not thought through, and others at first glance, it sounds great. We should bring down, interest rates to 10%. It would help everybody, all borrowers. There's a lot of Americans who have a lot of credit card debt. But then, what some of the experts have said is, well, but the problem is if you do that, then the credit card companies, the negative secondary effect is that they would just stop lending money, and maybe they cap what people are able to borrow at a very low amount.
No, that's not the issue. First of all, the president is the ideas guy. You're congressional leadership. Back in the day when Congress actually was worth something and actually did something, that's where the ideas came from. They would do things like write bills and pass laws. They would do more than just fundraise off corporate interests and bloviate about nonsense culture war issues that they couldn't care less about. God, Mike Johnson is such a pathetic dweeb, especially with that just sick lie. Like, oh no, if we cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year, it's they're not gonna loan out any money. No, you know what's gonna happen? They might take away some of the credit card rewards. Great, take my rewards, I don't care. Okay, stop loan sharking. Stop taking advantage of my fellow Americans. That's way more important to me than freaking airline miles. And then, in the Senate, you have Thune, useless, worthless, should be run out of town, should not be in leadership at all. He says, I think that would probably deprive an awful lot of people of access to credit cards around the country. Credit cards would probably become debit cards? What? That's not something I'm out there advocating for. Let's put it that way. He thinks you're stupid. That's what that communicated to me. Okay. But let's look at the data. What would actually happen? And remember, we're literally just talking about a 1-year cap on credit card interest rates. According to a report from Vanderbilt Policy Accelerator, the profit margins of most credit card companies could likely weather a 10% cap on credit card interest rates, but they would reduce rewards for borrowers by as much as $27 billion. Great, sign me up. Take my rewards, I don't care. I know that there's probably some greedy ass Americans out there who are like, oh no, my airline miles. You're a bad person. Okay, your rewards are funded by people who are dealing with this insane interest rate environment. And let me give you the details on that real quick. So let's go to graphic 8. In the last 3 months of 2025, rates hit 21% on average per data from the Federal Reserve. That's up from around 15% before the pandemic. I can't believe it was 15%. How did the credit card companies survive? Wow. The share of cardholders making only the minimum payment is at its highest since 2015 because Americans are broke. And that's according to data released by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in December, which has been gutted by the Trump administration. I'm surprised they're able to put out reports. And card users were assessed $160 billion in interest in 2024, and that's up from $105 billion in 2022. Let's look at this fun graph. Let's look at this fun graph so you can visualize what interest rates look like. So as you can see, interest rates are now up to 21%. They weren't always at 21%. I mean, in fact, if you look at what the rate was in the early aughts, it was much lower. Did those credit card companies go out of business? They didn't, did they? Were they still giving out rewards? They did, didn't they? These members of Congress think you're stupid. Don't let them insult your intelligence. Now, there are some Republicans who are in favor of capping the interest rates. Unfortunately, not enough of them are. But I do want to give them a shout out. You have Josh Hawley, who says this is a fantastic idea. Can't wait to vote for this. Well, Josh, you're not going to get the opportunity. Sorry. Your Republican colleagues like that there are loan sharks taking advantage of Americans. Representative Anna Paulina Luna had also previously teamed up with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to cap interest rates at 10%. But unfortunately, that went nowhere. So it's sad when I can literally only name 2 Republicans in Congress who are in favor of capping interest rates at 10% for 1 year. But here we are. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, Cenk Uygur joins us for the second hour.
The Michael Jordans of debating.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. You know, not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, you know, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd. But it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no. He's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sorrell, Nina Turner. Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Cenk.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, you know, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, you know, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level it's like, good, what we're talking about it now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, that your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both work to achieve, and I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy Anna Kasparian. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real, positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
You heard it with your own eyes.
Cenk, wealthy Muslim.
right, welcome to the Young Turks, or welcome back. Cenk Anna Kasparian with you guys. Anna's in New York. She's going to be on CNN again tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're checking that out. Has Don H8749 joined the conversation? He has. He's become a member and now part of the TYT family and nation. We appreciate you. Hit that join button below the YouTube. It's a beautiful button. Now, yet another awesome revelation and investigation by Dropsite News into Jeffrey Epstein. Anna, tell us all about it.
Yes, let's get to it. So, Dropsite News has just dropped another banger. And for any of the clip chimps out there who are gonna clip this out for social media, please credit Dropsite, because they're doing incredible work that no one else is willing to do, especially as it pertains to the Epstein files. Now, it turns out that Jeffrey Epstein played a major role in building a relationship between the United Arab Emirates, Israeli officials, and American capital. Like, Jeffrey Epstein was so much more than a disgusting pedophile. It turns out that he was wheeling and dealing with major global powers, Cenk. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not. But as I have said before, I was surprised originally when Dropsite News started doing these stories, because it turns out Epstein is not a peripheral character. He is a central character in intelligence agencies and their actions. But this story gave me an indication of which intelligence agency he works for a lot more definitively than the others. And wait till you find out why some of the Arab nations actually don't care about the Palestinians at all and are secretly working with Israel. An amazing story. Anna, tell us the facts.
It really is. And I just want to note, I mean, every media outlet has access to these files, and it's telling that none of the legacy media outlets are reporting on any of this. They'll report on the salacious stuff, but they won't report on this. So thank you to Dropsite News, incredible reporting. So this story revolves around Epstein's relationship with Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem. Okay, so Sulayem is an important figure because he is the head of something known as DP World, one of the world's biggest container terminal operators. So very important for trade, international trade. Furthermore, DP World controls an important trading hub in Dubai that's named Jafza. Now, Jafza is the US Navy's most frequently visited foreign port. And the United States, has more ships in UAE ports than in any other port outside of the United States. So you kind of get a sense of how critical and important, this port is, how important Jafza is. And so Sulayem also has ties to the Emirati ruling families. So Epstein happened to be close friends with him, very close friends with him, going back as far as at least 2006. At least we can document it dating back to 2006. And they were actually still friends when Epstein died. So Epstein claimed that his relationship with Sulayem was so close that he was basically in charge of this port, this incredibly critical, important port. Okay, so Epstein's dealings with this guy helped build the partnership between Israel and the UAE. So how did that happen? Well, that partnership, which was developed over many years, was kept under wraps until the Abraham Accord. So a lot of people did suspect that there was some sort of business dealing happening between the UAE and Israel that kind of explained how sheepish they were in terms of Israel's war crimes or its treatment of Palestinians. Then the Abraham Accords come out, they become public, and it kind of reinforced those suspicions, I'll put it that way. So throughout the mid 2010s, Epstein arranged meetings between Sulayem and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak comes up in these stories over and over and over again. As early as 2013, Epstein and Ehud Barak discussed the prospect of Sulayem investing into Israeli projects. So those efforts bore fruit in 2018. And that year, Sulayem told both Epstein and Ehud Barak that he would invest in something known as Carbine, which is an Israeli cybersecurity company that Epstein funded and Ehud Barak was the head of as its chairman. Epstein also connected Sulayem with the American capital on at least one occasion, more than one occasion. So one example, in 2009, he got Suleim a meeting with then CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jess Staley. And Sultan is laying the groundwork for you to establish a serious presence, Epstein advised Staley on December 9th. Epstein kept close tabs as the meetings progressed, writing the next day, having fun. She replied, Staley replies, wild, just saw the crown prince. So we'll end with an interaction dating back to 2017 when Suleim received an invitation to Donald Trump's first presidential inauguration. Quote, do you think it will be possible to shake hand with Trump? Suleim wrote. Epstein replied, very many people going, it will be very crowded, but if you can meet some before or after in either Washington or New York, it might be worth it, but unlikely. So I'm gonna stop here for comment because it's just amazing. I mean, look, Epstein was working hard to bring people together, Cenk. What was wrong with that?
Yeah, so there's two components of this story, or three actually. One is, oh my God, I had no idea what was happening in the UAE, and UAE turns out to be central in all of this, these stories. Number two is about Epstein himself and how central he was to all of those. Okay, and I'll get back to number three. So first, let's talk about UAE. So it's formed actually relatively recently. Remember, after World War I and World War II, a lot of these countries were formed. It's like 7 emirates that they put together. And it turns out they think even a Pakistani banker might have been critical in putting it together. And of course, Epstein knew him as well. So, and you see a lot of the most illicit characters in the world going through that port in the UAE. And why? Because they made it a free zone. So nothing got checked through customs. Since it was a very rare place on earth where nothing got checked through customs and could go in from one country and go to another country, it became a hub for peddling blood diamonds. And Epstein has a lot of diamonds and brags about it all the time. Drugs, guns, and every kind of illicit activity you can imagine. And it's all being done through this port that, as Anna just read to you, Epstein bragged he basically runs himself in the UAE. Now they're telling us that Jeffrey Epstein is just a regular old civilian who happens to know the most powerful people on earth and runs one of the most illicit ports along with the Suleim character in the UAE. There's no civilian that does that. Are you kidding me? What kind of a joke is this? That's why what Anna said in the beginning is so relevant. So all of the media in America actually know this story because they're following the drop site stories. And they're all going, we're not gonna cover it, right? Nope, nope. The most important revelations about how the world actually works? Nope, no, don't, shush. In fact, let's try to figure out how to bury that news. Are you guys in news at all? So guys, the reason why it becomes so central is so many of the scams you've heard about. I don't know if you heard about this Joe Low guy in Malaysia who stole billions from the Malaysian government. That was connected to Epstein and the UAE. And you see maybe that Pakistani banker might have gotten a piece of the action. Other people get a piece of the action and it runs to the UAE. So then when UAE then takes some of its money and invests into Carbine, Israeli security company, so they're now totally in bed with Israel. By the time the Abraham Accords come out, what you're seeing in American news is, oh, what a great breakthrough by Donald Trump taking these two enemies and bringing them together finally. No, they were working together the entire time. And there's Mossad, former director that's involved in this, and he's in Angola where the diamonds are coming from. They've got guys on both sides of the conflict. They're getting the money, all of that flowing in, and Epstein's a huge part of it. And there's a bank called BCCI. They later shut down in the midst of tons of controversies. Also set up by these same guys to run all of these illegal activities through. So meanwhile, Anna, as I'm reading all of this, I'm trying to figure out, yes, but who does Epstein work for, if anyone, right? And before, when I saw him in the middle of the Iran-Contra affair, that's another drop site news, I thought, well, it looked like his contacts were mainly with the Israelis, but obviously America, CIA was central to the Iran-Contra affair. They're the ones who ran it. Israeli intelligence also involved in Iran-Contra, so that's why, okay, could be either. But I thought maybe leaning towards the CIA. Nope. every single email is about how he can help Israel. Israel, right? And everything in America is such tangential to it, is helpful to the cause of helping Israel. So my assessment, Anna, and there's so much more interesting details that we're gonna get to in a second here too, but is that basically that Epstein was part of either officially or a deep state within Israel that ran all of these illicit activities all throughout the world. The CIA was perfectly aware of it and didn't mind it. And that's why they never did anything about Epstein, and that's why Epstein was allowed to run all of these criminal operations basically unimpeded in America.
Well, first, let me just note that the entirety of the Epstein files have yet to be released, and it does look like the Trump administration is trying to skirt that responsibility, because remember, Congress voted to have the administration release the Epstein files. So I only bring that up because we don't know we don't see the whole picture, and that's very much on purpose. So, everything we've seen so far seems to tie Epstein to, Israeli intelligence for sure. Maybe the forthcoming Epstein files, if we ever get them, will show that he worked with other intelligence agencies. I don't know.
So that's the part, and I just gotta say, they're never gonna release that. So you think the CIA is gonna be like, oh yeah, sure, here we worked with Mossad to rape American children, and we did it through Epstein, who was funneling illegal cash through all of our banks and had gotten it from like illicit diamonds and sex trade and running guns. By the way, also partly for the CIA. They're never, ever going to admit that. So let's realize what actually happened. And one last quick thing before you go to the stuff you got, Anna. So that's why, to complete the thought, the Abraham Accords, by the time they did that, they were already working, Israel and UAE and the intelligence agencies were already working so closely together. The UAE's internal security is from Israel. So, come on, they're totally intertwined. And at one point, a Liberian official that they were opposed to winds up in a sex scandal and has to step down. Now, I don't know that it's connected, but I thought, well, that's awfully convenient. And so they had their hands in almost everything going on in the world.
That's right. I want to get to some of the weird, salacious stuff, which could maybe have been used by Epstein for blackmail, or maybe they just like to do salacious stuff together. So let me get to those details, because Suleim and Epstein weren't just, business partners. They were very good friends and did go on vacations together. And look, we don't know for sure what transpired on those vacations, but all we can do is show you what Suleim and Epstein messaged to each other, okay? So Epstein wrote to him after one enjoyable excursion together in March of 2007, quote, "Hope you had fun. I am glad to have you as my friend. You are the only person I have met who is as crazy as me." After Epstein's death, the Miami Herald discovered that Epstein's neighboring island, Great St. James, had been purchased in Suleiman's, I know I'm mispronouncing his name and I apologize for that, in his name in 2016. And there's more. In November of that year, 2007, a few months after his indictment in Florida on sex abuse charges, Epstein mentioned to Suleim hearing a funny story from a woman they both knew. Suleim replied, "Yes, after several attempts for several months, we managed to meet in New York. There's a misunderstanding. She wanted some business while I only wanted some, I think you can fill in the blank." Epstein replied, "Praise Allah, there are still people like you." Unfortunately, there are plenty of people like that. But anyway, thoughts, Cenk, before we move on?
No, real quick, last two things here. So Epstein bragged that he had made his money from arms, drugs, and diamonds. And some people thought he was BSing, like showing off in Palm Beach, etc. No, turns out not at all. Now through the series of drop site news stories, these are leaked emails. By the way, part of the reason Ehud Barak shows up so much, that's a former Israeli prime minister in these emails, is because they tapped into his emails. And so how did they get Epstein's emails? Well, Epstein is talking to the Israelis nonstop, constantly arranging meetings for Ehud Barak and Vladimir Putin and with the UAE guys and coordinating everything. There is no civilian that coordinates illegal activities of Israel, America, Nicaragua, UAE, Angola. No, there's a guy who works for intelligence agencies, obviously. So look, guys, I wouldn't even have to be frustrated about it if our press did its job. But our press's job is not to uncover the news, it's to cover up the news. So for example, in America, you'll hear about a lot of countries and cities in the Middle East, and generally they're viewed like presented by American media in a very negative light, like, oh, the Muslims and Iran is terrorist, Hamas, and oh my God, Carlson, all this stuff, right? But the one place that's golden and never gets any bad press is the UAE. And Dubai, you hear about Dubai all the time. Oh, Dubai, everybody's in Dubai. Dubai is great, Dubai, because they're working with the Israelis. That's why. So, and they totally betrayed the Palestinians, threw them under the bus, don't care at all. They're like, how do we make more money? And the Israelis want to, run our cybersecurity, meaning they pretty much run the country. I mean, if you let the Israelis run your cybersecurity, you're it's like one giant pager that runs the country. So they've been in bed with them the entire time. But meanwhile, our media is like, well, Dubai's the one lovely place. And Abraham Accords, that's amazing. They did peace. Oh, UAE is so great. Israel's so great. And everyone else around them is the bad guys. No, it's the exact opposite of the truth. Isn't that amazing? They've been lying to you your whole life. It's just like the Wizard of Oz. What you thought was true is the exact opposite of the truth. Why? Because of the person with the microphone. The person with the microphone makes the biggest difference. So yes, after seeing all these stories, Anna, it's the most obvious thing in the world that Jeffrey Epstein was intelligence for Israel, no question about it. And yes, it appears the CIA knew. If they didn't know that Epstein was Israeli intelligence and he was running all these illegal operations, including with the CIA in Iran-Contra, then the CIA is the most incompetent organization in the history of the world. So yes, our government is also guilty. They've been covering up for all of Epstein's crimes because they're complicit in Epstein's crimes. And of course, the most important thing in America is Israel shall never be besmirched. So if there's shows that Israel is the one running that operation, well, then shh, everybody cover it up. And that's what's been happening until Drop Site News got these emails.
Well, it looks like we are going to be at war with Iran potentially as soon as tonight. And Laura Loomer is definitely one of the people who has been egging this on pretty vociferously. So when we come back from the break, we're gonna dunk on her. We'll be right back.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna read these blind. I read the first one, I was like, oh boy, it's fascinating here. Twitch member, late bloomer, Mad Grandma says, even though I sometimes don't agree with her, Anna is one of the most well-spoken and intelligent on this stream. Love you and your choice of words. Bloviate, I don't think that's the right word, but go girl. Okay.
I used the word bloviate earlier, which I never used that word, but it was so right today. Anyway.
Yeah, so lots of that. Mr. Mintler says, at what point does Anna's debate tour turn into a serial killing spree?
I love that I've now been branded that way. I don't know, I'm just being me. Like, it's funny because I don't see myself as aggressive, but I guess I'm a little bit aggressive.
Oh my God, are you nuts?
The Michael Jordans of debating.
No, when you
drop
were
that anytime.
Yeah. When
the Michael Jordans of debating.
All right. Okay, so when you were going up against Pearl, you were like a machine gun. You were like an AK-47, right? You're like, how about this? How about this? How about this? She's like, so I get it. Galfer71 writes in, watch party again tonight for Anna on Abby Phillips on TYT Discord, so check that out. Pagan Dragon writes in, love you all for keeping some sanity in this chaos. Oscat Dad says hello from Sydney, Australia. Keep up the great work and fighting the fight. Love you all. YTP Renewed said that lady threatening Cenk and Farsi gives all the opponents of the regime a bad name. Look, guys, don't get it confused. There's real organic opponents of the regime that are good guys and want to live in freedom.
Yes.
And then there are the Israelis that are using them and oftentimes getting them killed so that they can have an excuse to do regime change and put that pathetic puppet Pahlavi as the new Shah/dictator of Iran so they can completely neuter Iran. Those are two different things. The protesters against the regime could take over and go, oh, Pahlavi, oh, Shah, you'd like to come back as our new dictator. Why don't you take a long walk off a short dock, okay? Why don't you just go back to Tel Aviv where you came from? So we don't know yet. That hasn't evolved. Of course, anyways, you get it. I'll leave the rest for later. Mark Francis said, North Korea said it will, now this is YouTube members, said it will retaliate if Iran is attacked. Really? That would be surprising. And now, giant mess, and I hope that does not happen.
No, this is great. This is great. We're fighting for freedom here.
Yeah, freedom. I mean, look, it's so absurd. Yet no one in American media goes, but wait a minute, what do you mean freedom? Don't you want to impose the Shah on Iran? And the Shah is a king/dictator, right? Right? No. Oh, we are going to breathe them freedom with this new dictator that will serve Israel. Hello, I am mainstream media reporter, anchor.
Douglas McGregor is reporting that USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier strike group now streaming toward the Middle East.
Yeah, no, there's no way. We're definitely going to war. It's definitely for Israel, and it's definitely going to be a disaster. I guarantee it. All right, we'll talk more about it when we come back.
I was valedictorian in college.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry.
All right, back on TYT, guys. Cenk and Anna with you all. I've got Krystal Ball coming up tonight in about half an hour. So don't miss that interview, obviously, host of Breaking Points. Next Friday, I'm gonna need your help a little bit. We're gonna do a town hall with Marie Newman and 4 congressional candidates. So another conversation with congressional candidates, but I need your questions. So if you guys have thoughts on what to ask these candidates in Illinois, then we got one from Illinois 9, 7, 6, and 8. Make sure you send in your ideas at tyt.com/ideas. tyt.com/ideas. Post them your questions for them, and we'll be happy to do it. And of course, don't forget Noble Mobile. Save a lot of money on your cell phone service. tyt.com/switch. Anna, what's next?
All right. Well, I should give you a little bit of an update in real time as things kind of heat up with Iran. So I'm ready for my sidebar. Okay, so Tucker Carlson and Laura Loomer are tearing each other apart, which is a lot of fun. The thing that's not fun is what Laura Loomer has succeeded in pushing for, which is dragging the United States into war with Iran. And right now, as we speak, and this is a developing story, you have Douglas McGregor, who used to be Trump's foreign policy advisor, unfortunately no longer, reporting that the son of the supreme leader in Iran is attempting to seek refuge in Dubai. Iran has cleared its airspace. You have military assets from the United States moving toward the Middle East. So it looks like we could be at war with Iran as early as tonight. With that in mind, Tucker Carlson and Laura Loomer are tearing each other to shreds over the latest battle in this conservative civil war. I don't even know if I would consider Laura Loomer part of any political ideology. She's Israel first. That's the only thing that matters to her. And it shows. So Carlson and Loomer have feuded repeatedly, and Loomer constantly posts about Tucker Carlson. And their latest brawl started recently after Carlson wrote about Loomer in his morning newsletter, and this will provide a little bit of comedic relief because the writing here is amazing. So Loomer's Rumble show, whose viewers deserve sympathy and prayer, is called Loomer Unleashed. it should receive an immediate rebrand to Loomer Unhinged. Cenk, what are your 2 cents?
I love it. All right, look, for all of Tucker Carlson's faults, he is definitely America first. And you could say, well, I don't like parts of America first, and I like other parts, but he is what he is. And so he does not work for a foreign government and doesn't care about foreign governments, and sometimes to a fault. Laura Loomer cares about Israel more than everything else on planet Earth combined. If you don't know that, you're really super dense. Like, you don't know anything if you don't know that. And so, but what's more important for us guys than this interesting, and it is a super interesting storyline of this clash inside MAGA is, yes, but how is that going to affect policy? And even though Tucker Carlson is 1,000 times bigger than Laura Loomer, the Laura Loomers of the world run this place. So Tucker probably will not win the policy fight. But if that's short term versus long term might be a very different story. So a lot to get to.
So further, the newsletter writes, take one of her, meaning Laura Loomer's, podcast cocktail hour tweets from last night, which predictably called for an attack on Iran. Bomb the Ayatollah, the message stated without another word of analysis. Details are not her strong suit. Could such an assault prompt another US war in the Middle East? Could it get Americans killed and destabilize the region even further? Would civilians die too? She answered none of those questions because she does not care. The reason she lusts for a conflict is that she thinks it would help the nation she actually cares about, which is Israel. Her loyalty to that country guides her every move. And it's true. I mean, like, Loomer has repeatedly accused Tucker Carlson of harming the conservative movement by criticizing other right wingers, but that's not what she's really talking about. Right now, I mean, there was a poll that was just put out in regard to Republican sentiment in regard to the US going to war with Iran. Even a majority, it's a slim majority, but even a majority of Republican voters do not want to get dragged into a war with Iran. But it doesn't matter. Loomer seems to get what she wants in this regard. So in response to the attacks that Loomer, sends Tucker's way, Tucker Carlson responded with, establishment Republicans spent the beginning of the 21st century committing their lives to serving corporate, donor, and foreign interests before those of regular ballot casters. Why else would they support open borders, job-killing free trade, the Iraq and Afghanistan catastrophes, and maintaining the tax code's carried interest loophole? Trump rejected all of that. I don't know if I agree with that, but anyway, Trump rejected all of that, and it fueled his climb to the top of the party. I mean, he rejected all of that in his campaigning, but campaign Trump is different from President Trump. Now Loomer and her friends want to undo this transformation and return the GOP to its days as an obedient special interest lapdog. More attention for the Israel lobby, less for the American people. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree that that's what Laura Loomer wants. I mean, she could not possibly care less about this country or the American people. Obviously, we're dealing with terrible economic decline in this country from the vast majority of Americans. Consumer debt is at an all-time high. No one can afford to buy a home, even if you're making a six-figure income. I mean, it's out of control. But don't worry, we've got endless money for empire building and foreign wars.
Yeah, so look, the Mark Levins and the Laura Loomers have a microscopic audience. Their influence on voters is nearly nil, right? So yeah, do they have the pro-Israel crowd? Yeah, but they always had that anyway, and that's a tiny, tiny crowd, right? So Ben Shapiro is different. Daily Wire used to have a real audience, not as much anymore. But you would think like, oh, well, if you have a giant cable show or a big media outlet, then it might affect the politicians, and it doesn't, especially with Trump. When he's running for office, he's very aware of that and courts it aggressively because that's smart. And that's a rare time I'll say that Trump is smart on that, but it is a good strategy because you want to collect as many voters as possible. But once he's in office, he only cares about money, right? So he's like, voters, what do you mean? I already scammed them twice. I'm already in office again. They believed all the junk I was telling them. Now let's get rich, right? And let's just sell out to every donor there is. That's where it shifts to Laura Loomer's advantage. So they might be small, but the pro-Israel crowd in this country is obviously enormously wealthy. And they donate a tremendous amount of money. So Trump should know, one pro-Israel family alone, the Adelsons gave him over $337 million. That is an enormous amount of money. And they financed 94% of Congress. So we could have, on the left, we got the Young Turks and just about everybody else that's saying, no, please, free Palestine, end the genocide. Don't attack Iran, are you nuts, right? And on the right now, and by the way, I have never seen, and you've got to call it as it is, and you got to give credit where credit is due. I have never seen a single human being move as many people in America as Tucker Carlson did on the right. He almost single-handedly moved like an enormous percentage of their voters from pro-Israel to anti-Israel, at least not funding Israel anymore with our money.
And that's why, oh, sorry to interrupt you, but that's why Loomer like loathes him so much. And by the way, it's not just about Israel. I mean, his monologues about Venezuela, I wholeheartedly agreed with. I thought they were smart. I thought that they were well thought out. I wish our president actually thought through foreign policy decisions in a similar way. But I have to bring it up because do you think it was a bad look that Tucker Carlson was at that oil executive White House meeting? Because it did seem weird that he was criticizing what the Trump administration did, but he attended that event.
No, not at all. Being honestly, if Bernie was president, I'd go to the White House as often as possible. And if Bernie was doing a deal with the oil companies, which is hilarious, hilarious thought, I would want to be in the room, not to go rah rah, go get him, but to try to influence it in the better direction, right? So we have no idea what he was doing inside that room, and they're both right wing. He'd be crazy not to go. You want to influence the president as much as you possibly can. So now finally we get to, but who's going to win in this fight? Because Tucker did move almost certainly all the voters under 50 that are on the right now, they're gone for Israel, right? And Candace had a role, others had a role, but Tucker was number one. Okay, so none of that matters in Washington because they could give a rat's ass about any voter. The politicians in Washington, including Donald Trump, think that the American citizens are a joke to be used and manipulated. And so they love the Laura Loomers of the world. They're like, oh yeah, fake news, let's use it for our own advantage, etc. right? So in the short term, Laura Loomers of the world will win and we will almost certainly attack Iran. And we'll do it for Israel and we'll try to put that puppet in for them, the Shah, etc. And okay, but then it seems like the story's over. It didn't matter how many voters you moved. Now almost the entire left and right don't want to fund Israel anymore and don't want to attack Iran. It doesn't matter. But it does matter because I think that if Tucker Carlson runs in 2028, they could have all the money in the world. They're not going to be able to win that primary, okay?
I agree with you on that, yeah. I mean, look, I'll give you the numbers right now. So Quinnipiac poll that just came out. Dave DeCamp is sharing it on X if you want to take a look at it for yourselves. 7 out of 10 Americans do not want the US to take military action against Iran. And when it comes to Republicans specifically, 53% oppose. So I've been a little bit down today because the propagandists have done a really good job manufacturing this atmosphere where it seems like there's widespread support for the US getting dragged into this war. But the real numbers don't really bear that out.
Yeah, and by the way, the reason why it looks like an illusion is because it is an illusion. Mainstream media works for Israel. So they're like, oh, well, those poor protesters, we have to do something for their freedom. Laura Loomer is so right, this is about their freedom. And that's why we need to put a dictator in place that'll work for Israel. I thought you said it was about freedom. Okay, so they pervert, and then this 12,000, 20,000 number, I just want to be clear about that. So that's the number they're saying, oh, that's the number of protesters that are killed in the streets by the terrible Ayatollah. Ayatollah is terrible, okay? But did they really kill that many people? We have no idea. The internet is totally disconnected. We're getting no real news reporting from inside. Where did the number come from? CBS. And CBS is now owned by Israel. Barry Weiss runs it for David Ellison, who proudly says that he's like loyal to Israel, etc. So Israel's making up that number to go, oh my God. And one of our members wrote in, great point. This is like the Saddam's killing the babies in the incubators story. Every time they have some outlandish piece of propaganda. By the way, later in the war, Israel will do, and we keep saying Israel and America is doing the attacking. No, it's our troops that might die. It's our money that's gonna get wasted, but Israel is engineering all of it. So later they will order us probably to do, if they don't do it themselves, one of the things they pretended that Iran was doing, they'll probably do themselves. That's their pattern every single time. Oh, can you believe the Hamas is raping the Israelis and all the sexual assaults and murdering of the babies? And oh, they've killed so many babies. And then they go and kill 20,000 Palestinian kids and they rape Palestinians in the prisons. So
on camera.
Yeah. So look, guys, war is coming. Loomer's gonna win in the short run, but there's gonna be a reckoning over this. And this, I guarantee you, this war will be a disaster. It will not be clean like the other operations.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how foreign governments, not just Israel, but foreign governments like Qatar are also buying US influencers. This should probably be outlawed, but I don't have much hope in our government. We'll be right back.
All right, so tons of comments on Super Chat here. Solid Mirage Vanguard said, breaking news, Trump has frozen visa this time for 75 countries from 19 countries, including Pakistan, which I don't know why. I thought he praised Pakistan military. Yeah, I think we're a millimeter away from World War III. Trump, Satan Yahoo gave green light Russia. So, I want everyone to remember that Israel dragged us into this disastrous war, okay? And don't let anybody lie to you and tell you otherwise. God, it's amazing how much our mainstream media lies on behalf of Israel. Go ahead, Anna.
I got to jump in. This is very important. There has been a campaign to make Vice President JD Vance appear to be a dove, someone who doesn't want to get involved in, foreign wars and interventions and regime changes. It's all BS. Don't fall for it. Vance casts tie-breaking vote to kill Venezuela war powers resolution. So Congress was attempting to pass a bill that would require the executive branch to get approval from Congress before engaging in much of what we've been seeing in Venezuela. And looks like JD Vance is the one who did the tie-breaking vote to kill the resolution.
So guys, Anna's so right, we gotta do a story about it later. But there's this BS thing that they do where they leak after every military action that JD Vance had heartburn over it and he was really struggling with it and he was a no vote internally, et cetera. Why are they doing that? Because they know they're going to go to all these wars. They know that it's going to be an epic disaster and they don't want that stench on JD Vance when he runs again. So they can say, oh, he was the guy inside objecting to the wars. And then when he gets in, he'll do all the wars. And then his vice president or secretary of state will go, oh, golly gee, I was the one objecting to these wars. And then they'll repeat the pattern over and over again. JD Vance is created by Peter Thiel in a petri dish exactly to be the donors' bitches. So whether it's tech bros, Israel, et cetera, JD Vance has a for sale, like how the rappers have those giant chains? Same thing for JD Vance, but it just says for sale. So that's who he is. Free Meatballs and Linguini says, waiting for the plot twist where Ghislaine was in charge the whole time through her father and she had Epstein clipped in prison. That would be a great plot twist. I don't know if any of you saw, it was Agatha all along. It was Ghislaine all along, maybe. Of course, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was Robert Maxwell, a legendary Mossad spy, stole our nuclear secrets. I'm gonna say that until one person in mainstream media says it. One person. It's not a disputed fact. But they're like, no, not Israel. Don't let everybody know Israel's been robbing us of everything we have. $300 billion and our nuclear secrets and every secret we've had. Shush. terrorists, you anti-Semites, our beautiful, precious Israel. But by the way, we're objective news reporters. Okay, History Speaks YT says, it's an absolute joke to claim Iran's a threat to the US or the West as opposed to a threat to Israel. Extremist Muslims are a threat to the West, but they are Salafi jihadists, which is a school of Sunni Islam. Iranian leadership, while though they are Shiites, there have been zero, that's a real count, zero Shiite motivated terrorists in the US in the entire 21st century.
Do you view Vice President J.D. Vance as your successor?
No.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Harish, Srinivasan, Wallace, and Janine, thank you for joining through YouTube. The join button's below the video. We love you guys for it, and we need it, so we appreciate you. And the Interdependent and Smarucci, thank you for joining and donating through tyt.com/join, and we love that. Anna, what's next?
What's next is foreign influence has really infiltrated many parts of American society, and nowhere is that more true than the influencers. So let's discuss. A new Wall Street Journal expose sheds light on just how much American influencers are being influenced by foreign actors and foreign governments. Cenk, this piece is incredible and incredibly important. What are your 2 cents?
Yeah. They didn't talk about Israel enough. Instead, they attacked one of their enemies. But anyways, but overall, absolutely true and a good piece overall, because you should know who's paying for the videos that you watch. Oftentimes, it is not the creator's taking money from other interests, and that's what's driving it. Super important story about American media. Let's give you the facts.
So I'm gonna start off with the focus on corporate interests here at home, because that's also part of this expose. And they did name names. They gave some specific examples. So these influencers get bigger payouts if they're very close to the Trump administration, because they are likely to have more influence, I guess, over the Trump administration. So those known to have a good relationship with Trump's assistant, Natalie Harp, and other White House officials can command thousands of dollars more per post than others, according to a person familiar with the business. So 23-year-old CJ Pearson apparently is one of the individuals benefiting from this. He's close with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. And so he was hired by the Solar Energy Industries Association, which is like the most shocking thing I've ever heard in my life, to basically push back against President Trump's dismantling of renewable energy policies. So in this case, we're talking about a corporate interest that's pushing for something that I'm in favor of, right? I'm in favor of diversifying our energy sources. I wish we focused more on nuclear. I know that gets people upset, but it's the truth. Yes, I want to invest more in solar as well, wind as well. But I'm not in favor of people getting bought like this, okay? So even though I'm in favor of solar energy, I don't think this is right. Nonetheless, the solar campaign didn't change policy, but Pearson has inked so many deals that he launched his own firm to help connect peers with companies seeking influence. Quote, "I've never seen more interest in working with creators than right now," he said. Then you have a 25-year-old by the name of Deborah Lee, who signed contracts with Parler, Kalshi, and the solar industry. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, she said the most she has made from a single contract was more than $20,000 to represent them during TV hits, but she declined to name the company. Okay, according to I'm so depressed. According to insiders with knowledge of the industry, these influencers can receive up to tens of thousands of dollars per post, and the special interests are building vast infrastructure to connect with these influencers as well. So, for instance, Brad Parscale, who was Trump's former campaign manager, is now running a firm that essentially connects these influencers with companies that want to pay them for these sponsored posts, right? Now, the real question is, are they disclosing that they're getting paid to promote certain things? From what I've gathered, no, and that's a huge issue here. But sometimes these operations don't even involve money, to which I say, why would you agree to it? So in the piece, the Wall Street Journal explains how Jared Isaacman, who is Elon Musk's pick to lead NASA, wooed Benny Johnson simply with a special tour of his private hangar. He even gave Johnson some rides on his private jets. Earlier this year, Isaacman's nomination to lead NASA was actually pulled. But after Benny Johnson went on this trip and saw that hangar, if you know what I mean, Isaacman was put back into consideration, and eventually he was confirmed back in December. So he will now be the head of NASA. Now we've got the foreign governments involved as well. So I want to just quickly go through that and then get your thoughts, Cenk. So the Journal has revealed just how much money the Israeli government hopes to spend on wooing influencers. So Israel made plans over the past year to spend $900,000 on an influencer campaign with a US audience, according to disclosure documents, as Israel fights negative sentiment on the right, probably because they're slaughtering innocent people, and no one likes that. No one with a soul or a conscience likes that. Nonetheless, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is also speaking directly with right-wing media figures at Blair House, for instance, across the street from the White House in April, where his guests included Spicer, Maha, advocate Jessica Reed Krause, and podcaster Tim Pool, which explains a lot. Netanyahu urged support for US intervention in Iran, which Trump would eventually carry out in June. And at this moment, it appears he's going to potentially carry out again. Now, the government of Qatar, by the way, is also working to gain the favor of conservative influencers. In November, Qatar sponsored trips to Doha for several pro-Trump social media personalities, promising interactions with members of Congress who were also there and celebrities, and VIP Formula One tickets with paddock access that regularly go for more than $10,000 a piece. So those personalities, by the way, include Caitlin Sinclair and Rob Smith. They state the government of Qatar did not directly pay them at any point, but I'm not sure I believe them. Cenk, back to you.
So, look, a lot of my friends are really well educated because I went to some big schools, et cetera. Why do I tell you that? Because I think that they're the most naive people in the country. And why do I say that? Because they listen to establishment media. And establishment media tells you pretty little lies about how, the world is filled with unicorns and rainbows, and no government would do anything wrong. That sounds conspiratorial and crazy, right? Now, or corporations, by the way, and buying politicians, don't be ridiculous. You're besmirching those honorable people in Congress. So the reality is, no, it's a logical thing to do. If you're running a giant corporation or a foreign government, you would look to influence the most powerful, richest nation on earth. In fact, you'd be kind of a knucklehead if you didn't try to influence them. Then when you think about, okay, well, how do I influence them? Well, obviously, media is a huge part of it. And is that something that's new? No, not at all. So in this case, Wall Street Journal, which by the way, to be fair, is part of the establishment media, et cetera, with a pretty good story. But they make it seem like this is a new phenomenon. No, people have been using mainstream media to influence American policy for the last 50 years, probably forever, but certainly in my lifetime, right? So for example, General Barry McCaffrey used to go on NBC, and I remember this, we covered it during the lead up to the Iraq War, and he would say, we gotta go invade Iraq for sure. And you know what and then Brian Williams or whoever would ask him, okay, what do we need to do that? He said, well, we need the Abrams tank. Well, that's what and what NBC never told you is General McCaffrey worked for the company that produced the Abrams tank. And they were going to make a killing in Iraq. But NBC never told you that. And mainstream media would never tell you any of the folks that come on that have been taking this kind of money for the entire time. So, and then Semaphore is a small little media company you might or might not have heard of. And they're kind of like Axios and Politico, really insider stuff. I got no beef with them. I could like a couple of the guys that work there. But what do? They just got an unbelievably large valuation. They're now worth $330 million, even though their audience is about 50 people, right? Why? Because those 50 people control American government. So they do these live events and they bring senators and staffers, et cetera, and mainstream media, and it's funded by defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, et cetera. And they tell them, oh yeah, you gotta go to war with Iran. Oh, well, will Lockheed Martin make billions of dollars off of it? Will we skew the entire news to make it seem like war is wonderful and attractive because it helps all of our sponsors and donors? Yes. So even though this story is absolutely true, it's only telling you half the story. And the 20,000 and the 90,000, et cetera, even the 900,000 Israel spending on influencers is just, it's tiny. It's nickels and dimes compares to the hundreds of millions and the billions that all of these corporations and foreign governments have spent purchasing our media and our politicians.
Absolutely. All right, Krystal Ball's interview with Cenk is next, and don't miss me on CNN.
Yeah, Anna's on at 10 o'clock Eastern with Abby Phillip. Always, I actually think it's electric. Like whenever you're on, everybody's ready for a fight. And you don't have to fight, it's just like that. It's good. There's way more energy on the panel. So anyway, check it out tonight. And you're not gonna see me plugging CNN that much other than this, so enjoy it. But Krystal Ball from Breaking Points is next, so everybody stay right here. Really important conversation on the verge of war with Iran.
Last story.
All right, back on TYT. So on this program, Revolution, we are trying to crowdsource a revolution, left, right, center, doesn't matter. And what we mean by revolution is getting our government back and actually getting democracy. But we bring on guests, as I'm about to in a second, that have their own point of view and others who are actually trying to make it happen. So speaking of which, next Friday, January 23rd, we're gonna have 4 congressional candidates on a panel moderated by former Congresswoman Marie Newman and me. So it's not a debate, it's just shows candidates from 4 different districts in Illinois. Marie Newman was a US Congresswoman from Illinois. If you wanna ask them any questions, send us your submissions at tyt.com/ideas, tyt.com/ideas, okay? So now, joining me is Krystal Ball. She's host of Breaking Points along with Sagar and Jetty. Krystal, welcome to the show.
Great to see you, Cenk. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, so Krystal, there's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about current events, and I want to talk about overall what your sense of a revolution is, and if we need one, and how we could do it. Okay, but first, let's start with current events. It looks like we are on the precipice of war with Iran. Sounds like a spectacular idea, doesn't it?
Oh my God. I mean, do we ever learn anything from anything? And I mean, you talk a lot about democracy, and I think that's what this program is really focused on. Like, this is not something that the American people want whatsoever. But it seems like Trump has surrounded himself and been persuaded by a bunch of neocons and the Israel lobby and Netanyahu, who's constantly pushing for not even regime change, but regime collapse in Iran. And so sadly, I think after the first strikes on Iran, you and I and many others said, it's probably only a matter of time before we go back in. So listen, nobody knows exactly what's gonna happen. Trump made some sounds today about like, the protests are dying down, and maybe there wasn't as much killing as being said because he'd drawn this red line. But I am deeply, deeply concerned about where we're going, and even obviously zooming out from Iran. Like, they have effectuated a policy abroad that is just might makes right. We have the weapons, so we're gonna throw our weight around, law of the jungle. And I think it comes directly out of the lies getting us into the Iraq war, and then even more directly out of the barbarism that we all watched unfold in Gaza. I mean, if you can commit a genocide in 4K, live in our feeds every single day, and get away with it, like, yeah, you can do anything you want, apparently, in the world, and they feel like they can act with absolute impunity.
So I want to talk about media more because it makes such a giant difference in the country. And so let's start with mainstream media, because Krystal, you and I were both anchors on MSNBC, and so we worked within that machine, and so we know a thing or two about it. And now, like, look, I've been calling out that stuff forever, and you have as well. And part of the reason I left MSNBC was to tell the story of how they wanted me to do only Democratic propaganda, and I didn't want to do that, et cetera. So we're familiar with all that. But even so, even at this late date, even me, like, if anybody watches the Young Turks, nobody attacks mainstream media more than I do. Not any right winger, not anybody, right? But even so, Krystal, when I see what's happening with Iran here, where they're all in mass pretending that we might go to war because, oh my God, Mark Levin cares so much about the Iranian people. And all the pro-Israel pundits in this country and the politicians, all of a sudden, oh my God, there's Muslims dying. We're broken hearted over it. And they ignore that Israel's been trying to get us to do regime change in Iran for 20 straight years. And it has a massive lobbying operation in politics and in media to drive that war. Isn't it kind of amazing that they have collectively all are in effect lying to as many people in America as they can to get them to support this war, just like they did with Iraq?
It's frankly insulting, because the idea that the Iraq war was to liberate the Iraqi people, like, how did it go for the people of Iraq? Nothing could have been more disastrous than our war there. That we were gonna liberate the people of Afghanistan. Nothing could have been more disastrous than our war there. So obviously it's preposterous. And of course the red line and the justification Trump offered is the most absurd. He cares so deeply about the Iranian protesters. Are you kidding me? You just watched one of your ICE thugs shoot an American protester in the face 3 times. And you aren't investigating the killer. You're investigating the victim and her wife. You called her a domestic terrorist. So literally no one believes that Donald Trump is so deeply concerned about the people of Iran or so deeply concerned about the safety and the sanctity of the protesters there. I mean, please give me a break. They actually, in a new filing, they're claiming that, one of the problems with Maduro was that he was violating the rights of indigenous people in Venezuela. Like, does anyone believe that that's something that the Trump administration cares about? Like, at least I feel like in the neocon era, Cenk, they respected us enough to build up some lies to make the case for the war over years. Now, I literally don't even know if we go to war with Iran again, I don't even know what they are aiming for. I don't know what the stated reason is. I don't know what the goal is. None of it is even making any sense. We're supposed to care that Maduro had machine guns? I mean, this is just so insulting and preposterous, which is why even with all of the networks effectively in I mean, I don't want to say they're totally in lockstep, but they're much more. Fox News is totally in a lockstep. CNN, more, a little bit of dissent, but mostly in lockstep. MSNBC a little bit better, but it's very gradations of bad. But in spite of that overwhelming war propaganda, you still have the American people no, absolutely not. This is not what we want. Now, the one caveat I will say is that leading up to the last time we bombed Iran, you had partisans, Republicans, independents, and Democrats who all in advance were like, no, we won't want to do this. Once Trump did it, then the Republicans flipped. Same thing with Venezuela. We saw that same flip. And I fully expect we'll see that again with Republicans if we do go back to striking Iran.
Okay, I actually disagree with that last part, so that's gonna be interesting. But hold on, before we get to that part, and it's an interesting slight disagreement. So, look, I gotta put an asterisk on what you said. You're right, when you say, no one believes that Trump's doing this because it's his heart is broken for the Iranian people. Come on, right? But the giant asterisk is, except every national media reporter and anchor, because they're all talking about it as if that's what the American government is worried about. As if they just say all the time, nonstop, well, there's all these people died in Iran and Trump is worried about it, the American government is worried about it, freedom in Iran, blah, blah, blah. And not one of them ever mentions, oh, by the way, that country, Israel, that controls 94% of our politicians and gives hundreds of millions of dollars to our politicians, they want this war desperately. They've always wanted it. They don't care 1% about the Iranian people. And they just want a regime change so they can install a pro-Israel puppet, Reza Pahlavi, the Shah Jr., who went to Israel and told them, I will do what you want. And not one piece of reporting about that in mainstream media. So I think.
Well, I don't even think that, I don't actually even think that they imagine they can accomplish a regime change. I actually think in a sense it's worse than that. They want a regime collapse. They want it to look like Syria. They want it to look like Libya. They want it to look like Lebanon. So it's not even that they don't care about the Iranian people. They actively want them to suffer in some tribalized, horrible failed state situation. So that's the reality of what they're actually pushing for, because Israel wants to be the undisputed, power broker in the region. So until they weaken the Iranian government and they see that collapse, they're not going to be satisfied. Which is why, you saw Trump sort of dismissing the Shah's son in the same way he dismissed Machado down in Venezuela. I think he realizes you can't just put this figurehead in and think that it's gonna work out. But what they're aiming for is, what if we just sort of make this whole thing crumble and collapse? Then they'll be fighting, there'll probably be a civil war, it'll be a mess, and we can continue doing whatever we want to do in the region and throwing our weight around.
Yeah, I was slightly disagreeing with that too. So I hear what you're saying, but Krystal, my sense of it is, no, Israel, first of all, Israel hates democracy in the Middle East, because if those countries were democratic, they would all vote to oppose Israel. But instead they put in puppets that say, oh yes, oh Israel, oh well it's problematic, we are so worried, we support the Palestinians, and then just sit on their ass and don't do anything, right? So I think my sense of it is that Israel's desperate to put the Shah in there. A dictator puppet is exactly what they want. They don't want democracy, and I would say that they don't want civil war. Why? Because usually fundamentalists win in extremists win in a civil war. So if Iran got into a civil war, somebody worse than the Ayatollah would probably emerge. And if they had any kind of popular support, their first move would be to attack Israel. So if that's what they want, they're way dumber than I thought they were. Okay.
Well, I think they just want the collapse that they were able to push for in Syria, Lebanon, Libya. But I think we both agree they're certainly not up to any good and do not have the best interests of the Iranians at heart. And I think there are genuine people who look at the regime in place in Iran and are like, it's bad, it's repressive. I don't disagree with any of that, right?
Of course.
And who would like to see who would like to be able to embrace the noble aspirations of the protesters. But there is no way that you're going to get a democratic outcome in Iran where it truly is up to the Iranian people, so long as the US and Israel are messing in their business. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. Yeah. So you're either going to have the regime that's in place, or you're gonna have, to your point, some horrendous puppet dictator of the West. Those are the two choices that are on the table. They're both horrifying, and to pretend that you're gonna have this blossoming of democracy when we and Israel are deeply invested in this whole thing, like it's just a complete and utter fantasy and does a complete disservice to the American people to pretend that that is an option on the menu.
Yeah, so now I'm positive that we're gonna go to war, and part of the reason I say that is the aircraft carriers are on their way. So Trump says, oh no, maybe we will do a deal with them. That's exactly what he said right before he attacked them the first time.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So,
well, he uses diplomacy, and this is one of the things that's really disgusting about him. He uses diplomacy as cover for attacks, which, is not only, it's like immoral, but it also means, why would anyone ever come to the table with us? Why would anyone ever invest in diplomacy when multiple times in the past, it's just been a pretext to allow either ourselves directly or Israel to attack?
Yeah, and the only thing worse than what Trump does, which is like, oh, let's do diplomacy. Just kidding, I distracted you while I bombed you, is Israel, which murders peace negotiators, like very regularly. Oh, you're gonna negotiate peace with us? Oh, come. So like, word to the wise, if Donald Trump or Israel invites you to a peace negotiation, it's actually a wedding, a red one. So don't go, they're gonna kill you. Now, okay, so I believe the war is going to start, and I believe it is going to be an epic disaster. So Trump is Icarus. He's like, oh, I kidnapped Maduro. I bombed their nuclear facilities. I'm invincible, and this is going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all, because if we topple the Ayatollah, they consider that a success. No. Then the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is going to take over. They're not just going to be like, oh, we have all the weapons inside Iran, but will surrender? No, they're gonna have a power fight within themselves, and the most vicious dude in the world and probably several vicious dudes are gonna come out of that, and then we're gonna be mired in that muck. At some point, we're gonna lose some service members, and they're gonna use that to drag us more into war. But I'm curious about the next stage, right? Because there, Krystal, again, we that's why we have these conversations, have a little bit of disagreement about how it's gonna go, but I'm not sure. So,
okay.
My sense of it is Tucker and Candace and all those guys on the right are already off this train, right? They're like, I don't want this war, this is dumb. Not only do they not want the Iran war, I was pretty surprised that Tucker was like, no to Venezuela. That doesn't make any sense either. So that's a fascinating development. Then you have all the Rogans and the Dillons and all those guys who are now saying, hey, ICE is vicious and wrong, and we don't want it, and this is not what we asked for, etc. And they're generally anti-war, and Dillon's been very anti-war, so is Theo Von, etc. I think the minute we get into a significant mess, all of those, not all the right-wing shows, some of the right-wing shows, but critical ones, almost all the independent shows are gonna go, yeah, no, screw Trump. This is not at all what we wanted. And that could make a massive impact. And that's what's different about this versus the Iraq war, where it was us and Amy Goodman going, no, and everybody else in media going, this is gonna be fantastic. Let's go deeper and deeper into this quagmire. So I think that could make a big difference. Now, do you think that that's what's gonna happen with the podcasters and the right wing? Or do you have a different point of view on that? And do you think it can make a difference if it happens?
I mean, it depends on just how bad it is, right? Because all I can go on is the experience we had. So leading into the first Iran war, the 12-day war, or whatever the fuck he calls it. Sorry, I'm not supposed to cuss on this show, sorry. Anyway, whatever he calls it. There were those voices, right? There were actually Charlie Kirk went to the White House, Tucker Carlson. There was some genuine resistance within certain elements of MAGA who were like, we should not do this. Then it was short, and Trump seemed to get his like mission accomplished moment. And in fact, what happened after that is the people who Shapirs of the world, those people who were for it all along came and said, see, you people were wrong. You were stupid. You were saying the sky was gonna fall. Actually, this was easy and this was great. And so there has been, there was almost a quieting of those voices that had previously been critical. They were, oh, well, I guess this didn't go as poorly as it could have gone. Venezuela, leading into the kidnapping of Maduro and the strikes on Venezuela, there was very little in terms of MAGA pushback. And, this is something that Sagar and I talked about. He was opposed to it and he was very disheartened that there were so few voices on the right who were opposed to it. I think I work with most of them, there's a handful others outside of it. And similar deal. Afterwards, they're all out there, even people like, Nick Fuentes, who I think is disgusting because he's a neo-Nazi, but he tends to position himself as being like anti-interventionist. He was for it beforehand. And afterwards, he's like, yeah, this, I think this went well, mission accomplished. Here's my American flag emoji. So, and on the right with the base, if you look at it, it's very popular. So look, everything depends. If it's an absolute quagmire and a mess and it's undeniable and Donald Trump can't spin it, yeah, do I think that some of those, more like the bro podcasters and those places that have voiced their criticism at certain times, do I think they'll come out against it? Yeah, but it really, really depends. I have to tell you right now, Cenk, is I am extremely depressed and dispirited by the lockstep defense with the MAGA base of putting aside, like I know Rogan said some critical things. I said, no, Tim Dillon said some critical things, but in terms of Donald Trump's MAGA base, I am so disgusted with the way that they have embraced the narrative that Renee Good was a terrorist, embraced the military occupation of American streets, embraced this terror campaign and these Gestapo thugs, and actively in certain cases celebrated the death of Renee Good. So, there's a percentage of the country, this rock solid MAGA base that I just think has an ideology that is truly heinous and grotesque and not one that can really be sort of like rationalized with and reasoned with, and which flips on a dime just depending on what Donald Trump does and what his view of the day is.
Okay, great. So let's get into that conversation. So number one, your analysis of how they reacted after Iran and Venezuela are absolutely correct. I totally agree. So they rallied around the flag, and since the operations seem to have gone well, they got back into their rah-rah mood, and as I was saying on this show, they got into bald eagle mood,
right?
Like, wow, we're America, we can do anything we want, right? And so
yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, and so do they have that proclivity that, yes, they do, right? And it's the same kind of proclivity that leads them to go, rah, rah, ICE, yeah, if someone even looks at you kind of funny, shoot him in the head 3 times, wah, yeah, bald eagle, wah, wah, right? And you're like, no, shooting an unarmed woman in the face 3 times is not bald eagle, that's a coward, okay? And so I'm with you on all of that. And you could see it in the numbers. 35% of the country says, is generally on ISIS side. That's the number that's left. And so 35% well, that's dispiriting because that's a big chunk of the country and an even bigger percentage of Republicans, right? But at the same time, that means 2/3 are on our side, right?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, and so I think that the number one thing that people overlook is independents. Independents are larger than Democrats or Republicans, and independents do sway back and forth. They're not in that 35%. That 35% is, hardcore, extreme right, et cetera. Not all of the 35%, but a good chunk of it, right? Whereas the independents are totally on our side on war, on ICE, et cetera. So really, even when we talk about MAGA, it's a little bit of a misnomer because we don't need a single MAGA vote. We just need to convince the independents. And those guys, a lot of them voted for Trump, but now realize, at least certainly some of them, realize the errors of their ways. And I think actually that's a huge number. So first, does that make sense to you before I go on to the rest?
Oh, I absolutely agree with all of that.
Yeah, okay, great. And so those independents, I don't want people putting them in the same bucket as the most extreme right guy there is and going, oh, well, you voted for Trump, I give up on you. You're the worst, I can't stand you, you're a racist, fascist, et cetera. Like, no, win those guys back. And you could see it in the polling that actually already mission accomplished. We've already won them back, we just don't realize it, right? And because we haven't had a big election. And so, okay, so that's the point. Now, when you get to the reaction of what's going to happen next, the next one will not go well. So we had the US military carry out 2 tactically excellent operations. But I was on Piers Morgan just yesterday, Krystal, and Rob O'Neill, an interesting, questionable character, the guy who killed bin Laden, was on with me. And I said, the last question I asked, because there's like this, everybody's like, yeah, let's go to war, right? And I was like, Rob, you had those 2 operations. If you run a 3rd, a 4th, or a 5th operation, will something go wrong? And he's like, definitely, yeah. He's like, look, even when we got bin Laden, we had to burn one of our planes, right? Because we couldn't rescue it and we had to just totally destroy it. Something's gonna go wrong. And when that happens, my sense is that this discontent that had built up over the Epstein files and now the awakening about Israel, the minute 1, 2, 3 things go wrong, that's all gonna come back and go, oh, you guys were right. God damn it, turns out he's a uniparty mother effer and he got us into this mess. And I think the 26 and 28, I mean, I don't know, the Democrats can blow anything, okay? But it should go massively in our direction. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about independence, I think you're right that already they're disgusted. I mean, some 80% of Americans who were polled said they'd seen that video of Renee Good. Like, they're not gonna buy the BS from JD Vance and Kristi Noem and Donald Trump. They're horrified by it, right? They see these thugs in the streets and this is not something that they are willing to accept. And perhaps even more critically, the economy sucks. And Trump is off doing his foreign adventures. I'm gonna make Venezuela great again. I'm gonna make Iran great again. I'm gonna grab Greenland, which almost literally no one wants. All of these things, and it's like, I can't pay my bills. What are you doing? So yeah, I think the midterms are, even if Democrats continue to suck because they haven't been great, I think the midterms will be a romp for Democrats just by default. I think 2028, Democrats will be very well set up. And then, as you and I both know, the critical question is, well, what are you going to do with that power? Because just as easily as Trump and JD Vance and the crew could be vanquished, this fascist movement can easily rise from the ashes and come right back if people don't see their legitimate material needs and aspirations fulfilled. And so that's where it's really critical, and I know I'm singing to the choir here, but it's really critical that we fight for a Democratic Party that isn't going to just be a default, okay, we're not as bad as those psychos over there who are like Nazi posting on Maine all day long. We're not as psycho as them. It has to be that there is a positive, affirmative vision offered, and critically that it confronts capital, that it actually is, that movement actually is on the side of working people and takes their side when there is a conflict between their interests and the interests of the billionaires. And so that's That's the way that I'm seeing the landscape. And I think that's possible. I think that the Democratic base really has their eyes open right now. That's what makes me really hopeful. I mean, the independents as well, but in terms of the direction of the Democratic Party, it's gonna be the Democratic base that, primarily has the voice there. And I think there's a possibility. I'm, not gonna get down over my skis, but I do think there's a possibility there. But that's going to be an absolutely existential, truly existential fight and battle for the country.
Yeah, so many things you said I want to comment on real quick. Yeah, ironically, Trump has turned into Biden, right? Biden used to brag about, all the NATO leaders love me, so I'm going to win the re-election, and they had to tell him, no. No one in America cares about foreign leaders. Like you're not getting it at all. And now Trump's like, what do you mean? I made Iran great again. And
well, did you see Trump say to the Republican caucus, he was like, you have to tell me what's going on in the mind of these voters. It's like, wow, have you ever lost your touch? He can't understand why people are dissatisfied, and that is just insane.
Yeah, all right, I've now come up with a new term. I mean, I did the bald eagle thing, but I'm now gonna call them the bald eagle coalition. Okay, so those guys, even some of the Republicans that are supporting what ICE is doing, that like what we did in Venezuela, the minute that Iran turns into a mess, they're gonna go, oh, right, anti-war. Yeah, right, I meant anti-war, right? Because I think that part of it is that they hate the idea of America being controlled by a different country. And they have now begun to realize, yeah, Israel runs the place. And they are going to be very unhappy by that. In fact, I'll do another fun prediction here. I think that Trump, the people he has to worry about most in terms of his physical safety, etc., and in the anger towards them, is the bald eagle crowd when they realize that Trump duped them and he's uniparty elite and serves a different country. They're going to be 20 times angrier than the left, and it's going to be problematic. So, okay, so that's established, and we talked about that. Now I want to turn to what you, and one more thing about the Democrats. Totally right, Krystal. So, as we see independents awakening, Epstein files, Israel, etc., even some portions of MAGA, we also have an awakening on the left, on the Democratic side, because you and I have been in the populist progressive camp for a long, long time. But now, like I was just on the I've Had It podcast, and they were like, we were wrong to support Hillary. Bernie was right, right? And there's this awakening on that side going, we should have gone populist. What were we thinking? And they got lied to by mainstream media. Being popular will never work with the American people. Pick the corporate candidate. Americans love people who give speeches to banks and collect millions of dollars from it, etc. So I think that's super exciting. So, and again, guys, Krystal shows Breaking Points, and she does it with Sagar. Super interesting, make sure you're checking it out. So now, and it's populist left and populist right. Another reason why it's a really interesting show. So Krystal, what's your sense, a big picture of the kind of change that this government needs? Because you said, if the Democrats get in, they're gonna have a historic opportunity, and we're both worried, anyone paying attention is worried that they're gonna blow it, right? Yeah. So what do you think they should do? What would be akin to a revolution here that would get us back on the right track?
Well, I mean, first you have to clean up what has been done here, and that in and of itself is a monumental task. I mean, just putting back together the pieces of the government that were intentionally destroyed by Doge and throughout this administration is, a huge undertaking. You have to do that. You have to have accountability for the criminal wrongdoing that has been done here. Some people need to go to prison because you cannot try to take the rights of the American people and then we just go back to normal and pretend like this never happened. There needs to be elite accountability for the crimes that were committed here. I think that's actually extremely important for us to be able to move forward. Then you have to check these tech oligarchs who want to suck up all of our natural resources, take all of our jobs, consolidate all of the wealth and power in their own hands, and by the way, potentially destroy all of human civilization. You have to check them through taxes, you have to check them through regulation, and I think there needs to be public ownership of these AI technologies so that you can have democratic control. In the meantime, I fully support Bernie Sanders' effort to halt the development of data centers so that we can have a chance to have a democratic debate about what the development of AI looks like, who owns it, and who benefits. Then, of course, we know there has to be a focus on people's material needs. You must surge affordable housing and not this like public-private partnership. We really need direction from the top so that we're not reliant on the whims of some developer and what may or may not be profitable for them. You have to have, of course, Medicare for all. Then we need to look at things like, is it a jobs guarantee? Obviously, union rights. We all know what the litany of, the sort of social democratic program is, but it has to be done in an aggressive, no excuses manner. And I think Zoran's providing really a model in New York that is very aspirational on a city level, where it's not only the grand vision. I saw today they're already signing up for pre-K and 3K, universal pre-K and 3K, which is extraordinary. But he's also doing things like, they deep cleaned the subway system. Just something that makes working people's lives a little bit nicer, that makes their day a little bit measurably nicer. Paying attention to those details where life is not just about work, but life is about the experience and the quality of your day. So those are the sort of things that I think have to be done in order for us to move forward as a country. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, you have to abolish ICE. This is a rogue organization which has been set up to serve the needs and the diabolical whims of Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. They have been rogue for years at this point. Yes, we need immigration, or that function can go to the agencies that were performing that function before ICE got set up, but it has to be gone. That is part of the accountability project that has to occur.
Okay, so first of all, deep cleaning the subway is genius. I'm super glad he's doing that. It's gonna be like the most popular thing in New York. Okay.
And also building public restrooms too, which having lived in New York with little kids, it's like, oh my God, that would be a godsend.
Yeah. They'll turn into a mess, but let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. I love what he's doing. Okay, so now, Krystal, as you explain that litany of things that you think he has to do, or the Democrats have to do, Medicare for all, taking on the tech bros, taking on Israel, public ownership, abolishing ICE. This current Democratic Party, as it is constituted, will not come within a million miles of doing any of those things. Okay, so what are we gonna get? Cory Booker is gonna grow a spine and Klobuchar is gonna push legislation through? There's a 0% chance of that. So then what I think we need is a revolt within the Democratic Party. Like if we don't get some real hardcore populists into the Senate and the House, there'll be no fight at all. And the Schumer camp will get back in charge. And I've now talked to enough people inside Washington. I'm absolutely positive that if Schumer and Jeffries are in charge, their plan is to literally do nothing at all. So don't we need a revolt within the Democratic Party first?
Of course, I think that revolt is underway. I mean, don't you? Like, just look at Graham Plattner in Maine, going up against the sitting governor of Maine. And he's just like, no holds barred. Says it as plain as you could possibly say it, is as aggressive as you could possibly be. And a bunch of like elderly, nice white liberals in Maine are like, yes, that's what we're all about here. I mean, that is incredible. And Schumer, to your point, Schumer and DSCC have thrown in entirely with Janet Mills. You see this battle playing out in primaries across the country. Of course, got Abdul El Sayed. You've got Shoikat Chakrabarti running for Nancy Pelosi's old seat. I mean, there are so many extraordinary candidates who I'm so excited about, who are running across the country. And so I think that battle has already been joined. I don't think it's that the Democratic base is sitting back and no one's doing anything. Like what you're talking about, the revolt from within, that's already happening. Now, success is not guaranteed, of course, right? The establishment is not gonna just roll over that easily. And you also have to worry about, does the Democratic base get tricked by like Gavin Newsom doing the resistance posture very effectively, but then siding with billionaires every time that it counts? We have to make sure that people are paying attention to the details, that it's not just stylistic. So there are a lot of places and potholes along the way. But that's the one thing that does make me feel encouraged, is that I already see that fight happening. And I'm very excited about the way that it is going this far, because back in 2016, back in 2020, the Democratic base, they liked their leaders. They thought Nancy Pelosi was fighting for them. They had very high approval ratings. They still thought very highly of their media institutions, the MSNBCs, the CNNs, the New York Times, et cetera. The bloom is off that rose. They don't have the power and the capacity to manufacture consent the way that they did in the past. And that in and of itself opens up opportunities that never existed. If we can make it there and if we can survive as a country to get to that place, and that, I have to maintain optimism that it's not too late to not only just turn back the damage and the horrors that have been done, but actually build something out of the ashes that is truly extraordinary and meets the needs of working people in America.
Yeah, so obviously I agree. Shoykat Chakrabarti, among others, is in Rebellion PAC. PAC I started it. Populist Left, Randy Bryce, Richard Ojeda, Ro Khanna, Josh Turk, a really important Senate candidate in Iowa, who's leading that Democratic race. Hartzler Gray, very progressive young candidate out of Missouri. So everybody check out Rebellion PAC when you get a chance, but check out all of the Graham Plattners and Abdullah al-Sayeds, et cetera, that Krystal mentioned, who are all wonderfully populist, anti-authoritarian candidates that are running to take the Democratic Party in the right direction. So last question then, Krystal, and it's an impossible one, and so but I'm gonna ask it anyway, which is,
okay.
2028 candidate, any inklings of a person yet?
I have some thoughts, but I'm gonna keep them to myself right now. But I have no doubt there's gonna be someone who, at least someone who is occupying that lane, because there are too many people who are well aware of the stakes that we're up against right now and who see things clearly the way that, the way that we're able to see things clearly, that it can't be a Gavin Newsom, it can't be a Cory Booker, it can't be a Pete Buttigieg. I mean, for me, the critical thing is you do need to have a bit of that. Like, I think the resistance libs were right about that FU Trump energy, honestly. They were right about his moral character. They were right about their dire warnings. They were right about all of that. But you have to marry that with the populist, in a revolutionary way, populist economic platform and anti-war platform as well. You have to put those things, two things together. In any case, I am extremely confident that we're gonna have at least one, if not multiple candidates who fit the mold there that we'll be excited to get behind. So, that's where I'm hopeful. That's what I'm looking towards, because I think it's I don't mean to be too hyperbolic, but I genuinely think it's our only chance to not end up in something that is truly even more dystopian than what we're experiencing now. I really think a lot about AI and where that's heading. And I don't think we can even wrap our heads around the level of power and money that will be consolidated. They really want to win a final battle against the American worker. That's how high the stakes are. So, that's how I'm looking at the next few years.
Yeah, I don't want to give. Look, on the one, I love that resistance libs are turning around. I love it, and you know me, I take yes for an answer. I just can't help but say, we all knew Trump was a con man. That wasn't the entire left was united on that. That's not the issue. And so for me, for example, I think attack the politicians, attack the media. Don't attack the voters. We need the voters. Bring them to our side, right? But
I agree and I abide by that. However, I have to say that 30% of the country that is cool with the Nazi posting and that thinks that we should be a blood and soil ethno state, we are not winning them over.
And we don't have to.
We shouldn't be in coalition. Yeah, and we don't have to. You're right about that. We don't have to.
Yeah.
So I want all the best things for them, right? I want them to have the universal healthcare thing too. And I think people will be de-radicalized over time as their material needs are met. But I also am not looking through rose-colored glasses about where the country is right now and the distressingly high, not a majority, but distressingly high number of people who are totally excited about, not just accepting of, excited about an overtly fascist project. And I just think we have to be clear-eyed about that.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with you, Krystal. It's just that when we say that, it makes all Trump voters feel like we're saying that they're on the extreme edge. And the reality is yeah, you're right. I mentioned the 35% supporting ICE, et cetera, but you mentioned Greenland. And a poll out as only 4% of the country in favor of attacking Greenland, right? So even among the 35% that you're concerned about,
yeah,
even an overwhelming majority of them are attack Greenland.
Yeah, but watch what happens with the polls once Trump does it.
No, for sure, it'll move up, right?
Yeah.
And Greenland won't be hard to conquer, so that's not the issue. But anyways, but the most important point is we don't need them. It's okay, it's okay. And you're totally right. If we win and it's a populist and he actually does the right things, and for the first time ever, they see somebody doing something for the American people instead of the donor class, oh, that'll change a generation of voters, for sure. That's what happened with FDR and happened to some degree with JFK and LBJ. So, okay, let's all hope, let's hope we get the right person. Let's hope that they actually deliver, because it'll make all the difference. Everybody check out Breaking Points. And you know what, Krystal, tell everybody how they can support you as well.
Just if you go to breakingpoints.com, you know what, honestly, the best thing, if you guys don't mind going to our channel on YouTube, give us a subscribe, helps us in the algorithm, all that good stuff. We really appreciate that. So that's our big ask for this week. If you don't have to become a premium subscriber and pay the membership fee and whatever, if you just go over to our channel, give us a subscribe there, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Everybody check out Breaking Points. Krystal Ball, one of the top media personalities in the country. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Cenk. Always great to see you.
All right, you too. All right, guys, that's what I got for you today. I'm gonna be off for a little bit. Got a couple of things to do. On Tuesday of next week, I'm gonna do something very interesting that I can't tell you about yet, but you will see it and you will note it. So that fun project coming up in a little bit. So forgive me as I'm away, because I think that you'll like what I'm gonna do once you see it when I come back. But I'll be back soon, and nothing but love, guys, and I'll see you next week, okay?